Hello, everybody, and welcome into our special holiday. Is it a holiday? It's our Halloween show. It's the 31st of October, 2024. My name is CareyHolzman. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today, we have the first exclusive hands-on review of the brand new Minisforum AI370. This computer was a little confusing to me. AMD's new top-of-the-line flagship mobile processors. These are all, anytime we're looking at mini PCs, we're looking at what are called mobile processors, and mobile, if they have integrated graphic, or if they have discrete graphics, they'll be the mobile version of, let's say, a Radeon or NVIDIA card. They're not the same as the desktop version. They're lower power, even though they may share the same model numbers in the case of video cards. It may be a little bit confusing on what to expect with regards to performance, but rest assured, regardless of whoever makes the mini PC or the laptop, they're still under the same limitations of the processors and the GPUs made by Intel and AMD. So this question of how does it perform, it's a little confusing for me, because if we have 4 different manufacturers all making the new Ryzen 9 HX370, they're all going to likely perform the same, depending on whether or not they have built-in low-power RAM DDR5, LPDDR5, or if they have a socketable SODIMM memory. The soldered-in RAM is much faster, but you can't upgrade it. There's also a cost variance, but overall, your performance difference is very minor either way. It's really for the most extreme folks or people who care about data but don't necessarily have any practical use once they have the data. You know, it's like you go into a restaurant and there's food there you don't want to eat, but you want to know which one of the meals gives me the most food for the money. And you're asking the staff questions and details of what ingredients does it have, and how much portion do I get? But you're actually not eating it, regardless of how they answer the question. You just walk away going, okay, well, that's good to know. And that's what's frustrating us sometimes with some of the questions that I see and I get here on YouTube, is we have people who are kicking the tires, and they're asking a lot of detailed questions. And I'm trying to figure out, what's the problem you're trying to solve? If we have a computer that's got built-in RAM, or we've got a computer that's got replaceable RAM, I can understand you may have a personal preference, even though there should be no reason anymore to have to upgrade your RAM. If you buy the right machine for you out of the gate, you're good to go. So my Samsung Galaxy Book 4, it's Galaxy Book 3, has an Intel 13900H mobile processor. It's soldered in, you can never change it. The thing I need to change, me personally, the way I use my computer, I need to have a lot of storage, and I want it as fast as possible because I'm rendering videos. And as I mentioned, no matter how fast your computer is, and you've got all this storage, the storage is only fast inside of the computer. The minute you get the data onto the drive, that's going to be slow. Whatever the source of the data, your network, a flash drive, even a Thunderbolt drive, will be comparatively slow compared to what's possible inside the machine. And then once we get, this big amount of fast storage filled up, and we want to then take it from there and put it somewhere else, well, now we're back to the slowness of all the external devices and the external I/O, like the internet and USB ports and wireless, or whatever way that you're moving the data. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, so if the RAM is at this speed or at this speed, what's the difference that you believe you're going to get to make it worth to spend the extra money? And so far as I can tell, there isn't one. Very rarely does anybody actually have a practical reasoning. Sometimes I hear you get better frame rates in your games, but I don't understand how that makes your gaming skill improved, right? We've discussed that. Maybe you just like watching the games and you don't really enjoy playing them, or maybe I just can't wrap my head around it. So I struggle with that. But if somebody thinks their eye can see those faster frame rates, I mean, I can't tell them they're wrong. And if they want to spend the extra money to get that, I feel like they're just chasing numbers and it's all psychosomatic. That's fine if that's what it is. I'm a problem solver. So when people ask me questions on the technical side of things, I'm always trying to figure out, why are you asking the technical question? Like, to what end? The answer to the technical question is going to achieve what end result for you are you trying to achieve? Something's got to be faster. Something's got to be more responsive. Okay, and I'm trying to figure out, what is that thing that isn't fast enough for you now? Let's talk about that. We can talk about ways you can make that faster besides just throwing a hammer on it. We'll just keep hammering on it. This will make it go faster. Just keep beating it until morale improves. So I'm trying to solve problems, but I don't understand what the problems are. So I think it's mostly just curiosity. When Minisforum announced the AI370 EliteMini, I had a hard time wrapping my head around, why did Minisforum seem so excited about this AI neuroprocessing unit included? We've seen this for a while now, and yet I don't know where people are using it. Do you use AI on your computer? And if so, what are you using it for? Most of the AI I use is all being done on the server side, right? So if I go to Google search, my computer's not doing the search. Google's doing the search, using all of their powerful computers and banks of servers and super fast internet access, and all their processors that can process all the data on the internet, find those keywords I want quickly, and then all Google's doing is showing me the result. So when I'm doing like AI image processing, or if I'm playing with AI, it's almost universally all being done on the server side that has all the resources available. So now it's AI this and AI that, and I'm saying, well, that's all well and good, but what do you use it for? So here we go. We've got built-in neuroprocessing units, so you can process AI tasks on your local machine. Certainly not going to be as fast, but it can do it. But what tasks are those? What are the AI assisted or accelerated, AI accelerated tasks? I know like Adobe Premiere has some, but I don't use Adobe Premiere. And maybe, this is a solution that doesn't solve any problems on the home side, or maybe we're just so early into the technology that it doesn't really have much of a purpose yet. So that's why I'm scratching my head going, why was Minisforum so excited about it? So I started researching this new chip, this new Ryzen 9 from AMD. And if you take away all of the AI information, just ignore that, and let's look at what we have for a chip. You have, and I'm not a gamer, okay, but what you have here is a mini PC that can play AAA title games at 1080 at 60 frames per second or better. Built in the single most powerful internal graphics built into the processor, the APU, that AMD has ever released. And they were already smoking Intel on this side of it, right? So for me, Intel was better for video rendering with AV1 support, etc. Well, now, if you're the gamer looking for the mini PC that can game decently without limitation, as long as you want to play in 1080, and as long as you're okay with, hovering around 60 to, well, no less than 60 frames per second, really. Somewhere around 60 to 80 would be average, I'd say, on any game on the market. Pretty much it doesn't matter what the title is. If it's a AAA title game in 1080 without any additional expense, this can do it at 60 plus frames per second at 1080. That's pretty impressive. I think that's the focus of the unit, because I was looking at it and I was looking at the price and I just couldn't wrap my head around why I would pay the additional amount for all of the AI, because I don't know who's using it. So first of all, let's start by looking at the Minisforum homepage on this, so we can get an idea of what's the processor, what's the RAM, how's this all put together, and then giving you sort of a heads up on why it's priced the way it is. You have to think of it more in terms of a gaming PC. So as a gaming PC, it's a bargain. As a mini desktop computer, you could spend half as much and probably not notice much difference unless you're using it for gaming or you're using it for AI accelerated tasks. So that appears to be what the push is here. Now, you're going to see other Ryzen 9 370s coming out from other mini PC makers. That's the next step. Everything is marginally better than the step before. There's nothing here that's doubling or tripling the speed of a previous model. Depending on how you use the machine, and this is probably held true for the last 20 years, every generation of chip is about 10 to 15%, give or take, maybe as much as 17% performance increase in some tasks. They're usually more power efficient and usually get a little bit more for your money in the sense of caching and predictable, what do they call that? Prediction routes, faster RAM, faster I/O, faster USB. So this is more of that. And as we do these reviews, I want you to understand that there's nothing earth-shattering about any of these mini PCs that I'm presenting to you that blow away. Like if you're expecting there to be a night and day comparison, it's not going to be there except on certain specific tasks. So let's say you're doing something AI accelerated, you're going to go, wow, this is way better than whatever you're using now. If you're playing video games on an older AMD or Intel mini PC, this graphics card is the most powerful mobile GPU integrated into the CPU that AMD's ever released. The RDNA 3.5, I think they call it. But when I say it's the most powerful, we're talking, 10, 20%, right up in there. And again, it depends on the game. So with those caveats in place, let's look together at the Minisforum homepage and how they're promoting this so we can learn a little bit more about it together. Because this was a real head scratcher for me. I was thinking, it's all great about it. It's AI, AI, AI. You'll see. Let's go over there to the Minisforum page, and a shout out and a thank you also how can I not say thank you to our friend Buster, of course, for all of his support. Joining us from Scotland. Thank you to Frankie B, and a thank you especially to Tom Jackson. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you to all the members joining us today. Of course, our friend Oystein and Paul Gray. You guys are fantastic super members we're talking about here. All right, back over to my window capture. Let's jump over here. Now, you can see this product is not available yet. They've sent me a prototype, which is probably really, really close to what you're going to get. I mean, it's before they ship it to me, they think they're done with it, and they're just sending it to me for one kind of go over here. And so what you see here, or at least with regards to the configuration and how it shipped, may be slightly different. But you can see this is an $1,100, well, they're saying it's a $1,400 PC. And it's on sale for pre-sale for $1,099. And if you place your order, again, I'm not trying to sell this to you, I'm just telling you this is what Minisforum is saying. If you want to place an order before, well, this date's already passed, they're sending out the first batch of these on the 4th of November. And if you place an order on or after, well, yesterday, then your order will be sent out in the second batch, will be the 20th of November. There could be a difference in the batches depending on the response. They get, if there's an issue or a concern, they have time to address it and apply it. So you might be better off being in this group anyway, since it's too late to be in the first group. So that's a good way to look at it. With this configuration, you're getting the Ryzen AI 9 HX370. I can never quite remember all those letters and numbers. Forgive me, whatever I called it earlier in the video, but I'm pretty sure I was close. It's got 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte solid state drive. Now these, depending on who makes it, could have soldered on RAM or they could have removable RAM. This idea of wanting RAM that you can replace is going away. And it's going away because it's expensive, it's unreliable, and it's cheaper. You can make the machine thinner. You can make the machine more reliable, and you can put faster RAM in when you solder it down. It just makes more sense. My Galaxy Book 3 has soldered in RAM since the day I bought it. It's never come up short for me. I think people misunderstand the point of the RAM. They buy more that they're not using, and they're actually slowing their computer down. The more RAM you have, the longer it takes your computer to start up. So, you know, you're better off, in my opinion, spending your money on stuff that you'll actually use. Some of you will have use of more than 32 gigs of RAM. Most of you will not. Simply, when you run out of RAM, it just uses your storage as virtual RAM. And when you put fast storage in, it is so fast that the difference between that and the RAM above that amount you have installed, like say above 32 gigs in particular in this example, is hardly noticeable to most people. But there are some people who use their computer resources to an extreme. And for those people, yes, spending that kind of money makes sense to get that result. Most of us will probably be causing more harm than good, both to our wallet and at the very least, the boot up time of the machine. The fact that you can replace the RAM in and of itself, that in and of itself can cause RAM problems, RAM incompatibilities, installation not being correct, where the RAM's not properly seated. It can cause damage to the machine. Put the RAM, solder it in, leave it alone. It's good for the life of the computer. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's probably more than most people will ever use, at least during its useful life cycle. All right. I mean, at some point things change, but you know, how long do you think a machine like this should last? We're looking at probably about 8 years would be my guess, just like a desktop. Now, depending on how you use it and what you demand of it, you know, some people need a new computer every 2 years. So if you've got the wallet for it, I mean, have at it. If you want to buy something good that's going to last a long time, I have no reason to not think that this wouldn't last 8 years, minimal. So you'll see a little bit about the AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX370 that has that built-in NPU that does 50 tops, that's trillions of operations per second, that has to do with artificial intelligence, and that Radeon 890M, a AAA gaming experience, AAA titles, that is their most powerful internal graphics chip they've ever made. The memory is LPDDR5X at 7500 megahertz. That implies to me, and again, we'll open it to verify, that this is likely soldered on in order to make this affordable and to give you that much memory at that speed reliably. They don't have to do it this way, but I'm telling you, it's in your benefit. I understand if you've been in technology for a while, there's a tradition of going in and replacing things better than the manufacturer sold it to you. And that mostly holds true on the budget line today. But when you start getting into the high end, you know, again, I'm going to use my Samsung Galaxy Book 3 $3,000 laptop. That RAM is soldered in. Soldered in RAM is there for the performance and reliability that is demanded upon by the people who spend big bucks. Socketable RAM is there for people who want to shave every penny and think they can outsmart the engineers, when at the end it becomes less reliable and will cost you more money. But as a hobby for something to do, you still may have that desire. Now this has two M.2 slots in it, or so they say. Again, we're going to open it up. It says up to 4 terabytes. I really wish they would remove these limits, because these limits don't exist. Whatever NVMe drive will fit into any NVMe slot will fit any NVMe computer. It's not something limited by the computer, it's limited by the NVMe. There are 8 terabyte NVMe drives, and if it will fit into this mini computer, it will work, and this 4 terabyte limit is not true. There is no such thing in 2024 anyway, of any computer outfitted with an NVMe port that has any storage limit at all. The question is, will the drive fit into the slot? Sometimes some computers are built so narrowly or so shallow that the thicker NVMe chips may not sit down correctly. You could also run into heat issues with bigger, faster chips, that the mini computers, or heck, even your desktop computers, without proper heat sinks, will overheat and slow down. not necessarily cause any harm, but it might be really annoying. But again, that's nothing to do with a size limit. No size limit has or has ever existed for any NVMe drive, NVMe slot, sorry, on any computer ever made with an NVMe slot. All right, just to be clear, there never such thing has ever existed. Triple screen display, meaning you've got an HDMI port, a display port, and a USB 4 port. Okay, we've got two 2.5 gig Ethernet ports. Good. And it has Copilot. This comes with Windows 11 Pro 24H2 installed. They're saying the neural processing unit is for faster audio and video encoding. That's good for me, I suppose, but is that any good for you? Do you do video and audio encoding? Maybe you do. Integrated AI features that enhance your workflow. Can anybody tell me what workflow you use that has integrated AI function if only you had an integrated NPU? Because I'm not aware of any except for Adobe Premiere, which takes us back to the earlier statement about audio and video encoding. I imagine this will change in the future. It's 12 cores and 24 threads. It's the Zen 5 architecture with a max frequency of 5.1 gigahertz. It'll do, it says, 80 tops. There's some examples of Cinebench R23 that they've tested. And again, this is pretty much going to hold true from any manufacturer who uses this hardware. They don't make the CPU. They don't make the RAM. Minisforum is simply putting it together the same way any other mini PC is putting it together. The only difference may be like what we saw in the Intel 13th and 14th motherboards where they were overvolting the chips. Some mini PC manufacturers could undervolt or overvolt the chip in order to have it run cooler and quieter or have it run faster and hotter. Ideally, you buy one that's right down the middle and leave it alone, and then you have that balance between cool and quiet and efficient, and inefficient, hot and loud, but faster. So for me, I would leave it the way it was engineered because it's the perfect balance. If I wanted to modify that kind of information, those kind of details regarding power consumption, well, it's possible to do that on many mini PCs, including probably this one. Again, we're going to find out in a minute. I wouldn't do it. I'm a little confused that it says up to 50 tops, right? But up here, it says 80 tops. So something's off. Now, we've seen these typos from Minisforum before, and we'll get down to we'll figure this out. Tops, the trillions of operations per second on the neural processing unit mean nothing to me if I'm not using it anyway, but I would like to see some consistency with what this number is supposed to be. But whatever this chip is from AMD, that's going to be the same from any manufacturer of mini PC that uses this chip. If, for example, somebody comes out with like a handheld gaming computer, this would be a great chip for them to use. Because now you could have 1080 gaming on the go that supports AAA titles at up to 60, more than 60, no less than 60 frames per second, is what I'm trying to say. We're back to 50 tops here. I'm guessing 50 is the right number and that 80 is incorrect. One of the things you're going to see over and over with AI is it's all about creation. Creation, creation, creation. Most people are not creators. Most people, especially our audience and the YouTube audience overall, are consumers, not creators. So that's why this may have no benefit to you with regards to AI, unless you are creating or unless some app comes along that can help you consume artificially, using artificial intelligence, which I'm not. Who knows? Maybe that'll happen, but I'm not aware of anything that exists today except for people creating. So RDNA 3.5, 60 plus frames per second with a AAA gaming experience, which has about a 30% better gaming performance compared to, I don't know. That's just what it says. Embrace the AI era. Okay. 32 gig of lightning fast, 7500 megahertz RAM, usually seen in high-end workstations. Experience seamless multitasking like never before. Again, we have this false limitation. There is no such 4 terabyte limitation that has ever existed. If an 8 terabyte drive will fit in here, then an 8 terabyte drive will work. All right, let's keep going. Silent cooling, maximum effort. Again, Minisforum really specializes in their cooling solutions. They'll often use liquid metal, and that'll be sealed at the factory, and they will advise, they'll tell me, and they'll tell others, do not remove the cooling fan from the top of your CPU. It is sealed in a special manner using the liquid metal that no human being can do. It has to be done by machine to be done properly, and when you break the seal, you'll never make it better than how they sold it to you. You're only going to make it worse. Now, as long as you know that going in, have at it. Or if you have a machine that can apply it for you and seal that up for you, then, you know, go right ahead. So video output up to 8K. And of course, you can use that video output, the USB 4 port, which is up to 40 gigabits per second, supports video output up to 8K, and can support an external graphics card, external solid state drive with real fast data transfer, like the Zyke drive we tested earlier, the VR headsets, anything that needs a lot of data. And it can deliver up to 15 watts of power out that USB 4 port. So as we scroll down again, up to 3 displays, 2 2.5 gig Ethernet ports. There's a comparison of a smaller desktop compared to a mini PC. You see the dimensions. It's about 5 inches by 5 inches and smaller than 2 inches tall. And brand new product, so we don't have any reviews. We don't have any other information. That's what they want me to do for you, is they want me to present to you my particular take and evaluation of this mini PC. That's what they've asked of us, and that's what we're going to do. Let me just pop back into the chat room here right quick. And a 10-pound super chat from our friend Buster. Thank you, Buster. I see Frankie B says hello. Mark Baggett saying hello, along with David Graham and Dustin Fuller. And let's see. Oh, Mark Baggett renews membership. Now a member for 29 months. Right on. Thank you, Mark. Tony Andow says hello, as does Scott and Elijah 52 Dickens. 3D Everything and Charlie Purdy say hello. Thank you to Charlie Purdy also for his contributions recently. I really appreciate you. Mark Gaines joining us from Northern Ireland. Thank you, Mark. Welcome in. John Svensson says hello, as does Michael Sayers and Michael Lavelle. Robert McCord Magumi and Ron Barnish say hello. Peter Laycock says, it's happy Halloween, everyone. It's my mother's birthday today. She would have been 111 years old. Wow. It's also his niece's birthday. Well, Halloween is a popular day of birth for many people in Peter's family. Right on. There's a good reason to have some candy. Any reason is a good reason to have some candy. Well, of course, happy birthday to Peter Laycock's niece. Right on. Jerry Fowler says, trick or treat. Claudio Ventura says hello from Portugal. Right on. Thank you for joining us, Claudio. Welcome in. Shamim Kajviris from Switzerland, Sweden. I don't know why I can never get those two straight. I want to say I don't want to say either one now. I'm confused. I'm sure he'll tell us, and then I'll forget again. Bajan Guy says hello. There's Tony's RC saying hello. Donnie Seeger and Nick and Martin Postema all say hello. Richard Claiborne joins us and says hello, as does David Ice. And Richard Claiborne with a $5 super chat. Right on. Thank you, Richard. Where One says happy Halloween, everyone. Patrick Manny joining us, and Nick Poverman. Stephen Massey says hello. Stephen wants to know, from all the mini PCs you reviewed, which one do you like the most for all-around use, productivity, and gaming? Well, I don't game, so gaming is not important to me. If I wanted to game, I would anticipate this is the one, if I hold it up straight, that's the one I'm probably going to want. My personal favorites, have been the Minisforum MS01 workstation and the S790, which is more of a small tower with the 4060 graphics card in it. However, that being said, anything that Minisforum has the word Atom Man in front of the model is a high-end gaming workstation computer. The bottom line I think you can take from this is Carey likes computers that are $1,000 plus. Well, unfortunately, I can't, I could use a budget computer to do what I need to get done, but I won't want to do it. It'll be discouraging for me to try and edit a video on a budget machine. I need to get a lot done quickly. And so I like to have more power than I need so that the processing is more instantaneous so I can move on to my next thing. I've got a stack of things I have to get through every day, from emails, like I say, correspondence, to dealing with support with remote access. I need fast, I need it now. As soon as I can help that person, I can help the next person. As soon as I can respond to that email, I can answer the next email. As soon as I can render this video, I can upload it and render the next video. It's all about time, and I don't have any employees. It's all on me to get this done. And so for me personally, if we're looking at a sub $1,000 computer, there's a great chance I'm not going to be happy with it unless it's a bare bones machine, in which case it won't be a sub $1,000 computer when I'm done adding the RAM, storage, and operating system. So one way or another, we're getting there. And it's been this way for a very long time. It's just that what we're getting for that $1,000, you're getting more and more for your money today. There are a lot of machines that we have reviewed here that are wonderful, amazing, great computers, and I would be very happy with probably out of the 50 we have, 35 of them, because we don't really have much in the way of budget bargain computers, because I don't think I would have a very reputable business if you had to keep replacing your computers every 2 or 3 years. It really depends on the customer. You know, a budget machine may be all they need and they'll be happy with it, but we have more or less an enthusiast community on YouTube. We don't get a lot of business folks here on YouTube, and it's like two different worlds that I live in. I live in a world where the business folks don't want to hear about this nonsense, and the YouTube viewers don't really respect the concerns. I get the feeling a lot of YouTube, not all, they're just not interested. I don't care what your problem is, Carey. I don't care what your demands are with warranty, and I don't care what your customers' expectations are, and whether or not that puts you out of business has no effect on my life, because this has no impact on me and I'm not interested. I just want to play Fortnite. Fair enough, fair enough. But I feel like there's already enough videos about Fortnite. I don't need to add any more, because what's the point? It's already done. So I will continue stubbornly to keep shoving business in front of you, because that's where the money is. That's what keeps me in business. And if I upset the businesses, if I fail to deliver a quality product, or if I take too long to support them or get them a solution right away, the very fact that they even need a solution may not bode well with me in the future of working with that company. My whole life is on the line with regards to how I earn a living. And that if I screw it up, or if I try and put profits over everything else, that may be good for me for a short period of time, but over the long period of time, you'd have to burn through a lot of customers and just keep getting new ones. And I don't want to work that hard. I'd rather keep the same customers, keep them happy and keep them coming back, keep them referring me so I don't have to pay for any advertising and marketing. I don't have to go knocking on any doors. All the work comes to me. Maybe I'm just lazy, but I just feel like that's an easier way to sustain a business. And none of that has to do with Fortnite or gaming. So that's why I'm not against it. I just have other things that I can do. And it surprises me that when people spend so many hours gaming, that they have that kind of free time. I guess I'm jealous of it. I had that kind of free time when I was a teenager. But as an adult now, what's at stake is far more important than getting to the next level in a video game for me. So It's not a high priority for me. That being said, when we talk about this unit, and I tell you it's good for gaming, I'm telling that for you, not for me. Like I'm not going to load any games and test this. It's going to run exactly the same as everybody else who's going to test this chip or has tested the Ryzen HX9 370. It's going to do exactly the same process. Minisforum doesn't make the chip, so it doesn't matter who makes the mini PC. They're going to perform all within the same margin of error. So I fail to understand. Sometimes we'll get comments from viewers who are like, well, you didn't test any games on it. Like, well, no, why would I? I don't know what games you play and at what settings you play them, or that's going to be relevant to you and how you're going to use the computer. But you can get an idea from other YouTube channels that will review this, who will play some random games out of 10,000 possible games. They'll play like 4. And if that helps you make a decision, I mean, all right. But it's one of those things where if it was like one game, when we all play this one game, and all the other games had such little percentage of market share, it didn't matter. I would certainly test it for you. But we're all over the map with this stuff. So it will do what it's capable of. That's all I can tell you. And the same will be true for every manufacturer using these chips. The limitation isn't typically on the manufacturer unless the manufacturer did something incorrectly. But that being said, let's see. Oh, there's Ray Sudbury says hello. William Bird says hello. LRCX joining us, renews membership, now a member for 17 months. Right on, thank you, Larry. He says, hello all, my how time flies. Right? Thank you for that. And Richard Palmentier renews membership, now a member for 14 months. As always, he says, this is informative information and glad to be a part of this amazing community. Well, right on. We appreciate you for being a part of this amazing community. Christopher Horton says, there's too many games these days. Some are well optimized, some run great, some don't. That's the other problem, right? There's no consistency in quality. And then the manufacturers of games don't want to sink the kind of money into it now. So the amount of money they're willing to put into the product ends up being limited, which means the product you're buying is going to be limited and you're likely not going to be happy with it. But then when they put, millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars into a product, and then the product bombs and no one's buying it, they never want to do that again, right? Like if you invested $100,000 of your money into a project that was then going to sell to the public and you thought you were going to make a lot of money, and it turns out the public's not interested and they don't want to buy it. You just lost your $100,000 minus whatever profits from the few who did buy it. At what point do you cut your losses and get out and say, I'm not going to do that again? That's what's happening in the big AAA titles. Everybody wants to play it safe on the investment side and just keep doing what we've always done so we can always make what we've always made. Doesn't quite work that way. It doesn't work that way in Hollywood. In game manufacturing in Hollywood, they almost cross over each other these days. With the CGI being used in movies and the movies being used in gaming, it's a blur now. So what we're experiencing in the movie industry, where everybody's playing everything safe and there's very few original ideas or movies that are really thought-provoking movies that are more artistic based, they're all profit based, following the basic same formulas over and over and over. As a younger person, that might have been happening back in the 70s and I was too young to not have enough movie experience, but I don't think it was. But the older I get and the more I keep seeing the same formulas over and over, the more frustrated I get as a consumer going, I've already seen this movie 4 times before when it had 4 different titles. It's kind of the same movie. They kind of ripped it off. You know what I'm talking about. There's a movie called Freaky Friday. There's a movie called Vice Versa. There's a movie called The Abyss. There's a movie called Leviathan. Whatever it is, there's a counter to it in a lot of movie genres. And this can go on for decades, by the way. How many times do I have to watch a Spider-Man reboot or a Batman? How many times do I have to watch Bruce Wayne's parents being shot in an alley? I've seen this 6 times already. Yeah, but we're doing it with a different actor this time. Anyway, I'd like to see something new, something refreshing. And, when you do that, you risk that it's just not going to hit. Well, that's how it goes. That's how it works. If you play it safe, you will achieve no innovation. And if you innovate, you're going to have some failures, but you learn from those and you keep going. But somebody has to finance all of that. And that's where the issue comes in. Are you putting your money down to invest in it? Anyway, so let's get this unboxed. The AI370. Now, I've searched all over the internet, and I appear to be the first one who actually has hands-on with one. So I can't thank Minisforum enough for giving us this opportunity to get a unique, I know whatever view I have on this, I won't be repeating what anybody else has said. I will be the first one who has said it. All right, that's all I'm saying. Got some documentation. We have the mini PC itself, which I'm going to bring up to the camera here and show you close up. Now, it's all plastic, all right? And I know some of you might think that's disappointing at this price point. But the problem when you use a metal mini PC is your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth are going to have a hard time getting through this. So your range is going to be limited as a result. By going all plastic, it's cheaper to make, it's lighter, not that the weight should matter, but your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth range will be much further. And that's just a universal truth regardless of who makes it. Unless they want to put antennas externally on the back. But then that makes it kind of ugly. But we have seen some mini PCs with attachable antennas. That's why they did it. But then when you do that, the machine's not as small anymore, is it? What we've got here is the front with our power button. I'm guessing that's a microphone over there. I'm not sure. We've got our audio jack, our USB 4, and 2 USB Type A's. I'm guessing those are 3.2s. We'd have to go back at the specs. Look, nothing on that side, and that side just ventilation. All the way around the back, 2 more USB Type A's, DisplayPort, HDMI. They say these are both 2.5 gig Ethernet ports. We have a standard barrel power connector. We have a Kensington lock right here, and you'll see there's like a little lip here to lift the lid. But that lid is secured on the bottom with screws that are not covered up with rubber feet. Am I awake? Yes, Minisforum move the rubber feet away from the screws. Ah, was that so hard? Thank you, Minisforum. On behalf of anybody that ever wants to open one of these up to do an upgrade, this is how it should be on all your mini PCs that are supposed to be user serviceable and upgradable. And I'm glad they've listened, at least on this one. Oh, that makes me so happy. It's such an easy thing, and I don't know why we were struggling with it for so long, but I gotta just tell you that I suppose if they gave it to me right out of the gate, I wouldn't appreciate it. But now that we've been dealing with all these sticky rubber feet that won't stick back on and they tear, I appreciate this so much. All right, in the box, what do you get? We have a power adapter here. It's a smaller power adapter. Uses the cloverleaf or Mickey Mouse style typically found on laptop power cord that goes into the power adapter that goes into the mini PC. The power adapter does not say the manufacturer of it doesn't say Minisforum on it anywhere. So if you have multiple devices that use these power connectors, they're all proprietary to the device. You can't move them around or you risk burning up the device. So I highly recommend, if you have any of these connected to anything, I don't care if it's a clock radio, is that a dated reference? Or anything, a laptop, anything. If these two items get separated in a box, and then I dig out 3 mini PCs and 3 adapters, and all 3 power adapters will fit, how do I know for sure? I have to start looking at voltages and polarities and amperages to make the determination if that's the right unit. Or you can take a step right now. I can grab a silver Sharpie marker and I can write right on it. I can write AI370 right on that. In fact, I think I'm going to right now. Now, maybe you don't have many adapters laying around. Maybe you'll remember. I know I will not remember this. So this tells me nothing but the manufacturer, a third party, makes this power adapter. But I didn't buy it from a third party. I bought it from Minisforum. And because it's black, a black marker is not going to work too well. So I always have a silver Sharpie for just such an occasion. And I'm going to write AI370. So I know what this is in the future. Even if it's not the best handwriting, I don't care. It sits on the floor. No one's going to see it. What I care about is I have some peace of mind when I put these two things together. I'm not going to blow it up, because that's $1,000 you're blowing up. Also in the box, we have a mounting bracket. This is so you can hang this unit behind a monitor, or you can mount it on a wall, you can mount it under a desk. I don't know when you mount it how you're going to get access to the ports, but some people do that. This is our power cable. It's a cloverleaf style Mickey Mouse, looks like a silhouette of Mickey Mouse. Typically found on laptops, and these are typically used on laptops. And these are portable parts, mobile parts that laptops use. It all makes sense. And then we've got a small HDMI cable here, a short one, I should say. So that's all you get in the box, so you're not overwhelmed with a bunch of stuff. What does this do? What does that do? And let's move everything aside. Let's plug it in and turn it on. Now, this arrived yesterday, and I opened it, and I checked to see what version of Windows we have and what updates we're missing. And what I can tell you is it came with Windows 11 Pro 24H2. There were only a handful of updates, but as you well know, those cumulative updates, even with a fast internet and a fast computer, they can take a little while to process. So I went ahead and got that out of the way. AMD Adrenalin was also already installed. It automatically updates itself, so I don't remember what version it was. And that's pretty much all I did with it. So that's why this is not in a wrapper and this is not in a wrapper. I've removed them, and I'm not trying to fool you into thinking I'm opening this for the first time. But I also haven't had much time since it only arrived yesterday. I only had last night a couple of hours to familiarize myself with it, to make sure everything was powering on, because if we're not going to get that far, there's no sense making a video if we can't review it. And so far, we haven't had that problem with any mini PC unless I opened it up and broke it. So we'll save that for later. We'll open the bottom up and take a look at what's in there. I'm pretty sure that RAM's going to be soldered on if it's LPDDR5. That low power double data rate RAM is faster. That 7500 megahertz is going to be soldered in, I'm pretty sure. So when you order this, pay attention to how much RAM you're getting and get the most you can afford if you plan on keeping it a long time. 32 gigs, like I said, that's in my Samsung Galaxy Book 3. I've had that at least a year now. And I'll be honest, there's a Galaxy Book 4 I've been eyeing. It still has a maximum 32 gigs of RAM, and it's only one generation processor newer. So it might be 10% faster, but the machine works so well, I don't think I would notice 10% faster, but I would notice $3,000 missing out of my bank account. That's how good it is. When we start adding 64 gigs, 128 gigs, again, you're going to slow down your boot up time significantly. Significantly. We have that big server from Serve the Home that has 128 gigs of RAM. I could turn this on and boot it up 6 times before that thing will even start loading. You know, the big Threadripper build. It takes a long time. If we took 3/4 of the RAM out of it, it'd boot a lot faster. But that's not what that machine's designed to do. So with that, let me get this hooked up. HDMI will go right here. Ethernet. Normally I would not plug the Ethernet in until I've gotten through the user setup, but this did have the option to click I don't have internet regardless, so you could still bypass the Microsoft login requirement. I appreciate that Minisforum has configured it that way. You do go through the proper out-of-box experience as you should. Keyboard and mouse I will need. Let's bring that out here and here. I hate to use a USB 3 port for a keyboard and mouse, but that's all they give us. Some people are going to say, well, it only has one USB 4 port, so it's a no-go for me. Again, I have to ask, what are you using the USB 4 ports for? Is it that you want to hook up 2 additional monitors instead of 1? I don't have a single customer, never mind most. I do not have a single customer with any USB Type-C devices other than charging cables for their cell phones. They don't have any USB-C printers. They don't have any USB-C. Everything's more or less going wireless, right? So the USB-C, the 40 gig per second, is really there if you have money and big files. So money meaning you can afford a Zyke drive enclosure for $110. You can afford a $200 Gen 4 NVMe to put in there. And you can afford a machine with USB 4 to transfer the data at those speeds. Everything has to be up here for all of that to work. Most consumers that I interact with don't ask me how much money can I throw at this. They ask me, here's how much I have, how much can I get for this? That's typically the way it works. So you're never going to see these high-end components outselling what the general population is buying. The general population, number one, can't justify the expense, and number two, wouldn't even benefit from it. Right? Too many people are still plugging in old flash drives and old hardware they bought 10 years ago. And no matter how many times I warn people, don't mix and match your old hardware with your new hardware, they do it anyway. They absolutely, I would say 100% of the time, do not listen to me. And then I get the call or I get the email. Hey, Carey, my computer stopped booting up. You know, I get some kind of weird problem that doesn't make any sense. And I have learned this is what people do. They don't listen because they think it doesn't apply to them. But I can almost guarantee that whatever failure you will have with your computer in the future will most likely be related to any old hardware that you insisted was fine. And at the time, you were right, but the old hardware is older than everything else and is going to fail statistically much sooner than everything else. So someone emails me, and this is fairly common. And they go, you know, I built a computer, it's been working great, now it won't turn on. I hit the power button, it lights up, nothing happens. I didn't do anything, you know? I don't know what it can be. And my very first question to you is, do you have any external USB drives plugged into your computer at boot up time? Yes. What is it? Or I'll just say disconnect it. Doesn't even matter what it is, just disconnect it. Yeah, but it was working before. I don't care if it was working before. We wouldn't be having this conversation. So, you know, unplug any external USB drive with the computer off, then turn the computer back on again. Tell me if it works. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, it works, and now they want to know why. And I'm telling them why, and they don't want to hear it. And I go, well, you know, if you have any other questions, let me know. Because I'm not going to sit there and, you know, I don't have that kind of time to offer somebody help and then have to explain why the solution worked beyond you mixed old and new. This is why I told you not to do that. It will eventually, most likely, appear in some strange way that you will have a problem nobody understands. When you talk to your friends, nobody overall, most even other technicians, don't consider that you're mixing old and new. They're taking what you say at the word that you've rephrased it, and it's the tech's job, in my opinion, to interrogate you to find out what you haven't told me. Because it's the part you haven't told me that's causing your problem. And if you had known that, you wouldn't have called me. That's where we're trying to get, right? And then they want to know why. Well, beyond mixing old and new, why doesn't matter. There's your solution. Have a nice day. You know, it's one thing to tutor somebody. It's another thing to provide a solution. Providing a solution is very different from tutoring. So anyway, let me move on with the power cable. Sometimes people, they say, I want to know why so I can prevent it from happening again. Well, stop mixing old and new hardware. But there was nothing wrong with it. Right, but there is now. So there you go. I don't know what else I can tell them. That's it. If you do that, don't be surprised. I'm not telling you not to. I'm saying if you don't want this possible consequence, if you want to reduce the odds, don't exercise that behavior. But if you want to, don't let me get in your way. But the next time it happens, now you'll be able to fix it yourself. In that way, it's kind of tutoring, but not to a technical or engineering level. Before I fire this up, our friend Mitch Morrison is traveling all throughout South America throughout the month. I think he's gone for like 5 or 6 weeks. And Mitch went to a place, he said it was very difficult for him to get tickets, called Machu Picchu in Peru. And I've heard of Machu Picchu, but I don't really know anything about it. Yeah, I might have learned something about it in elementary school, but I can't remember what the significance of it was and why it would be so hard to get tickets to it. And then Mitch sent us a video, and my jaw just about hit the floor. Watch this.
Hey, Uncle Carey and everyone in chat, it's your Uncle Mitch. You get one guess where I am. I'm at Machu Picchu. What do you think of that? It's a little misty out. Luckily, it's not raining, but taking a very nice walk. Look at the mountains there with the fog, and isn't that beautiful? And I haven't dropped off yet, and so there you go. Machu Picchu, Peru. Bye.
You see what I'm saying? Holy moly. Wow. That is breathtaking. So thank you for sharing that with us, Mitch. Sounds like he's having a great trip. And I guess I understand better now why tickets were so hard to get. And he said without the assistance of a company that does this, he would not have been able to acquire those tickets on his own, that there was certain processes and forms that had to be filled out that he had no idea, and the company took care of all of it for him. And then there's a limited number of tickets they give out every day, and that's it. It always sells out early. And he said he was very fortunate, because the odds were against him that he was going to be able to get to see Machu Picchu. And I think, well, so what? But now that I've seen it, oh man, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. The other thing that I wanted to share with you, when Mitch is shooting videos in previous trips, he's always sending me these like huge files that are maybe 30 seconds long or whatever. And I told Mitch, I go, look, I don't know what kind of bandwidth you have when you travel, but you don't need these 30-second files to be uploaded at 4 gigs. There's no reason this couldn't be 90% smaller. And Mitch goes, oh, you mean I could use Handbrake on it? I'm like, oh, you know how to use Handbrake? He goes, yeah. I go, yeah, exactly. So now when Mitch is sending the videos to me, instead of 4 gigs, they're like 40,000 megs. They're like literally 90% smaller. And that's a tip for the rest of you if you want to upload things like video, in particular video, but also photos. The size of the photos that your phone is taking, that you're uploading, they're massive. If you can reduce the size and the resolution of those photos or change the format to something more compression based, you will not notice a difference on a computer monitor. You won't see any difference. So just a little tip from your Uncle Carey, you can not necessarily need to buy a bigger hard drive. If you can reduce the size of the files that you're saving, if they're pictures and video, even music, more compression through modern Ogg Vorbis MP3 that can give you great sound quality at a reduced file size. And it gets so close these days that comparing a raw file or like a FLAC file in MP3 format or versus MP3 format becomes almost imperceptible now, unless you are the most sensitive of viewer or listener. Some might say, well, that Machu Picchu video had a little bit of artifacting, but you know what? For a 90% smaller file size, it was very minor. So you reach a point of diminishing returns when you're sending these massive files with all the little detail. Most people won't see the little detail. And it's taking 90 times more bandwidth. And whatever amount of time it's taking to upload that file is 9 times longer than it would be. You could be done and move on to the next thing by simply reducing the file size of your photos and videos that you're uploading, that you're putting up into the internet, just so you know. Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat. He says, there you are. Our friend Planet Cryos, I talked to him yesterday and I mentioned we have the 11th gen CPU that a viewer sent in, but I don't have any motherboards. And when I looked at the pricing, forget about it. It doesn't make any sense. And Planet Cryos reached out and he goes, I have a board here. You can have it. No, I can? He said, yeah, I'll send it to you if you want it. Great. So we'll have an 11th gen build coming up. Because I have plenty of RAM and plenty of storage and power supplies, all that's no problem. And presumably the 11th gen chip, I'm pointing down here like you can see it, it's just sitting on the floor behind me. Presumably it works. For all we know, it may not work. So at least I'm not putting any money into it. And if we end up with a bad processor, I'll still put the board away. I'm sure it'll come up in something. It always does. Hey, there's Mitch Morrison right there, joining us from South America. Welcome in, Mitch. That was an incredible video. Nice, steady hands. No, he does a great job. And the other thing a lot of people will do is they move the camera too quickly, or they'll shoot it in vertical mode. This ain't TikTok. Mitch did everything perfectly. Steady hand, slow pans, right? Compressed it down, uploaded it, and it looks brilliant, and I can't take my eyes off of it. So good job. If you're looking for another career, Mitch, I think cinematographer might be in the works for you. If the whole working in front of the camera doesn't work out, yeah, you might have a career in working behind it. It's a great job. Great job. All right, so let's turn this thing on and hear what it sounds like. By the way, can I just say, we have wonderful temperatures outside here in Phoenix. Finally, we're down into the 70s. What's the temp right now? I have been waiting forever. 78 degrees Fahrenheit here in Phoenix right now. It's beautiful outside. Beautiful. Can it just stay like this? Probably not. And right quick, let me just check the emails while I've got the phone in my hand. Frankie B again, thank you for the Amazon gift card. Very generous contribution from our friend Frankie B. And Tom Jackson as well. And we're going to have some more builds for you. I'm waiting on some motherboards which will not arrive here until the end of next week, so they say. If they arrive sooner, then we'll do our Intel Ultra build sooner. That's all we're waiting on at this point. All right, so we're going to turn this on. I want to show you accurately as I can, actual boot time. And this is a cold boot. The machine's been off and unplugged. So let's see if we go to our HDMI input, and I take camera 1 and I put it in a corner. That way you can tell when I hit the power button and initiate the boot up sequence. Right now, there's a little light that comes on. I don't hear a thing. It's whisper quiet. I do expect it will ramp up and then ramp back down again. But it didn't. Well, we're already up. So it's still loading some things in the background, but I mean, we can start using it. If we go to our system properties, right click on the start menu and go to system, we can see we've got the AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX370 with Radeon 890M. Did you get all that? 32 gigs of RAM. 23.6 is usable, meaning that the graphics card here is borrowing or stealing from this amount over here. And you can adjust this in the BIOS, I think, but you should just leave it to auto. It's what I would do. Windows 11 Pro 24H2, that's not my doing. That's how they sent it to me. It just had some updates, obviously, from Microsoft. If I ship you a computer, by the time you get it, there will be some Microsoft updates, even though I fully updated it before I sent it. We can check our activation status to make sure we have a licensed copy of Windows. See if Windows is activated. It's active. Great. I would expect nothing less. Let's go to the device manager. Let's take a look at the network interfaces that we have here. So with regards to our adapters, we have a killer Wi-Fi 6E wireless adapter that has Bluetooth 5.3. And we have two Realtek gaming 2.5 gig family Ethernet controllers. Now, out of the gate, everything's looking good. We've got the AMD Adrenalin software down here. Like I said, that auto updates, and like Microsoft, you know, from the time the manufacturer ships it to when you get it, this is likely going to have an update. You can always manually check for updates, which I did, just to force it along. But we have a little yellow exclamation point down here. Now, normally these icons are all hidden and you have to hit the little up arrow down here. It occurs to me my camera might have just blocked our version number there. Let's get rid of camera 1 for the rest of this. So you can see everything that I'm seeing and I don't have to think about whether or not my camera is covering anything. So right here, we have, this is normally hidden. And what I see that concerns me is it says device security. Secure boot is off. Your device may be vulnerable. Remember, we have, it's my understanding, a prototype. So this might have been something somebody overlooked. I will bring it to Minisforum attention immediately after this video to make sure that when they ship these, that they're not being shipped with this turned off. I think somebody missed this. But it says your PC is manufactured as a secured core PC by Microcomputer Tech Limited. That's Minisforum. But it does not have the secure core PCs turned on. Okay, well, let's take care of that. Now, again, I've never been in the BIOS of this machine. I have no idea where it's at or what it looks like, but let's try and see if we can find it. I'm sure we can. It's by restarting it, and then I'll start pressing the delete key right about now, over and over, press, press, press. And apparently I've missed the opportunity. Once you see the little toilet bowl flushing down there, that indicates Windows is loading. So I'm going to try another way into the BIOS, which is simply by going into the troubleshooting mode of Windows. And it's a couple of clicks. Probably shouldn't be, but I guess they don't want you to do it by mistake. And what we do is we go to our settings, and we're going to go to Windows Update. We're going to go to advanced option. Is it advanced? Yeah, advanced options and then recovery. Under recovery, we want advanced startup mode and hit restart now. Are you sure? Yes. That's a lot of clicks to get us there. When it restarts in advanced mode, it's going to give us some restart options that you don't normally get at Windows boot up, because then people would complain the boot up's taking too long. But then when the boot up's too fast, people complain I can't press the key to get into the BIOS fast enough. Pick something. Anyway, so this is pick something to be outraged. This is a very easy way to get into it, even if it is several clicks, because we're not done yet, right? I mean, that's just getting us to the advanced menu. So the advanced menu is going to come up, and one of the options will be to restart into the BIOS without us having to do anything else. So when this comes up, we're going to click Troubleshoot. We're going to go to Advanced again, and UEFI firmware settings. When we click on that and again hit restart, there's another, what, 4 clicks, we're 8 clicks into this so far. We don't have to do anything but stand here. And when the machine restarts, it immediately goes into the BIOS, and you don't have to worry about pressing any keys. It's that easy. And one of the benefits of having a UEFI BIOS, something you're not going to have on an older machine. Now, the BIOS is a little different from what we've seen from other Minisforum machines, which of course you can look through my video library and see our other reviews. It looks like we've got a crucial 1 terabyte drive installed. That's what that model number looks like to me. The memory is 7,500 megahertz. Yeah. Under advanced boot, maybe it's under boot. Fast boot is enabled, so that's certainly going to explain the faster boot times. No reason not to turn that on that I can think of. Secure boot, it's probably under security, right? That's where I would have put it. It's secure boot right here is disabled. This needs to be turned on for Windows 11, and I don't know how that got through. I would just do a standard secure boot mode. I think that's all it needs. I'm guessing, because I don't normally, I normally leave a BIOS when I'm building a machine at its defaults. So I don't normally have to go in here and do any of this. If you're already using secure boot and you change this, you may make your machine unbootable until you change it back. But since we never had it on to begin with, I think we should set it up right to begin. Under advanced, just because we have not looked under this menu, I'm curious what our options are. Auto power on. I don't know what auto power on is. Oh, I see. If it loses power, if you tripped over the cable or you had a power outage, and then the power comes back on to your house, your electricity comes back on, do you want the machine to stay off or do you want it to turn itself on? The problem with having it turn itself on is, what if the power outage is still in process of being repaired and the power goes out again? That happens during storms here in Phoenix, where you'll get a power fluctuation. You think it's on, it goes right back off again. I would just say leave it off and I will turn it back on. But if this was a machine you had somewhere remotely and you did not have access to it, you might just want to plug it into a surge protector and take your risk and let it get spiked every single time the power goes off and on again. By default, we want it off, in my opinion. Or you could just say whatever state it was in before it lost electricity. If it was off, leave it off. If it was on, turn it back on. That's your third option. Wake on LAN, we don't use that. Again, it's more of a something corporations use where they can save electricity by having machines that aren't in use be serviced remotely by turning them on remotely when you need to, and then having them turn back off into it's almost like a standby state. But that requires software and knowledge to activate and utilize that. The CEC support is something I'm not familiar with. I don't know if we want that enabled or disabled. So here's your power limit. Remember, I was talking about you can have the machine run lower power, which means lower heat, slightly lower performance. Also less fan noise, hence quiet. You've got performance mode, which means crank up the power, crank up the heat, and crank up the fans so I can go just a little bit faster. Or my preference is to be right between those two settings, quiet and performance, which is balance mode. That's how it's shipping from the manufacturer, and that's the setting I recommend to sustain a very long-term, reliable, quiet, pleasant to use experience that will last the longest period of time. But that's just the way I look at it. You decide accordingly. I'm just here to explain to you why you might choose something different, but that's not what I'm choosing. RTC wake settings, again, this is like sleep mode stuff, which if it's not running off batteries, I really don't understand the benefit. Trusted computing will be your TPM support, which has to be turned on, or Windows 11 will not install without compromising the safety that you would have on the internet, which would be, in my opinion, an extraordinarily foolish thing to do. Yes, you can wear an all-black outfit tonight during Halloween and walk down a major busy intersection right across the road and hope cars see you. You could, and you might be successful at not being hit by a car. Don't recommend it. I wouldn't wear all black. I'd have something reflective, or I'd have some glow sticks or some LEDs, and I would be crossing in crosswalks, and I would not expect people driving cars or paying attention. They're usually looking down at their phones. So this idea that I'm going to cross the road and these cars are going to see me, what if it doesn't? Who's going to win that battle? So there are things you can do, absolutely, but should you? Well, I'm not your father, despite what your mom says. All right, so trusted computing, we talk about CPU configuration. We have a bit of, the core performance boost, the hyper-threading, all of that's turned on by default. I don't recommend any changes in here. Your hardware monitor, this kind of gives you the idea of your fan speed and your CPU temps without running software like HW Info. It's all in the BIOS here as well. And you can configure the smart fan. Basically, enabling is, it says auto fan speed enabled. Disable means auto, and enabled means setting. It seems to get that backwards. But I'm telling you, the fan's really quiet right now, so I don't want to change it. So let's save and exit now that we have boot mode, not boot mode, secured boot mode enabled. So we'll save and change, save and reset. Okay, I will get these words out, I promise you. Save changes and exit, or save changes and reset. Some manufacturers say it one way, some manufacturers say it another way, but this is universally what they mean. And when we fire up again, there's your live boot time right there. The fan is still whisper quiet. And if we go down to the security settings now, I still have this yellow exclamation point, and it might take it a second to register. Let's see what happens. Oh, I just didn't give it enough time. So as it opened, it also updated that secure boot is on and everything is now happy. So this is a pretty serious thing. You want to make sure secure boot is on if you're using Windows 11, if you want to be safe on the worldwide internet, where lots of people want to steal from you. So I would not take that lightly, and I will and again, this is exactly why Minisforum wants us to look at it. So if we see stuff like this, we can make them aware of it, so their customers will have a better experience, potentially. Now, let me go back over to camera 1 here for a moment. And we'll go full screen on that so I can see. Got to hit the right keyboard. That always helps. And let me take a look in the chat room. If you guys have any questions that you've asked about this, and I just haven't been looking over there. I've been full screen and I can't see the chat. Please ask those questions again, and I'll do my best. If I know the answer or I can get the answer, I'll do my best to provide an answer. There does not appear to be RAID support. They are not promoting this with RAID support. So just because you see 2 NVMe slots or 2 M.2 slots, don't assume RAID support. And I'm kind of glad it doesn't have it, to be honest. We talked about all the reasons why you shouldn't make your boot drive a RAID array. But be that as it may, if you choose to, there are caveats that other people simply don't have, that only you will because you did that. So the fact that this is not offering a RAID array, nor is it being promoted as ever having one, I'm good with that. Now, while I'm looking in the chat, I'm going to turn this off and take it apart and see if I can't do 2 things at the same time. And I know there's a delay from when I speak to when you hear me. And if you're current up to the moment, it should only be about a 4-second delay. But I know some of you are falling behind and you don't even realize it. You can hit the refresh button and make sure that you are scrolled all the way to the right to be getting the latest 4-second delay on these live videos. If you're watching the video after October 31st, 2024, this was a recording of a live video that you're watching, just like when I Love Lucy showed, it's a recorded live in front of a studio audience. Well, yeah, to the studio audience, it was live. You're the studio audience. Some people are confused. Why does it say live? Because it was live. All right, let's shut it down. Let me go over here to camera 2 one more time so I can see where the button is right there, and we'll shut down. And we'll open it up and just verify the RAM is going to be integrated and that there are, in fact, 2 M.2 slots and what's going on in there. We're going to find out here right now. So with the power cable disconnected, always disconnect power before you open up any electronics, especially expensive electronics. It has nothing to do with your capabilities. It has to do with mistakes. So unless you're a machine, we all make mistakes, and these can be very costly mistakes if what you're working on is important to you. Safety first. And it'll help if I can see what I'm doing because everything is super tiny in there. I'm going to need a long, skinny driver to get down in there. So I have these jeweler's drivers right here. I think Nick Poverman sent these years ago. And I never really had much use for them except on occasionally a laptop would come in. But now I'm pulling them out all the time with the advent of mini PCs because they do use those mobile parts that laptops use. It makes sense. They use the smaller, delicate drivers, precision drivers that the same mobile parts in laptops often require. But look, I didn't have to remove any rubber feet. Now that is a Phillips number 2. No, what is that? It's not a number 2. It's like a number 1. It's too narrow. No, it's not a number 1. I don't know what that is. It's smaller. It's not a 0. The bigger the number, the wider the head at the end of the driver. So that one, when I put it in, it's so small, it's kind of wiggling around the middle of the screw. I can feel it. So maybe this bigger one is what I need. This one doesn't seem like it will sit into the head of the screw, like it's too big. We seem to be stuck between a number 1 and a number 0. So I have my JIS driver, but I think it's too wide. Let's see. Here's my JIS driver. Oh, there's like no wiggle room. It literally just sits right in there perfectly, aligns with the head of the screw. There is a slight difference between a Japanese industrial standard Phillips head and an American typical Phillips number whatever. And there's your evidence that that exists. And having a JIS, I still think it's called a JIS number 1. This is great for the installation of M.2 drives. This is great for a lot of these mini PCs and most laptops. You've seen me pull this out when I'll tell you, one of the things I really like about it is it's not as delicate, right? It's not as precise. These are precision drivers. This is great if you need to fix your eyeglasses and work with really tiny stuff. Well, I may have spoken too soon because, well, we got into these two just fine. For some reason, we're not having the same experience on the last two. Oh, wait, okay, I'm feeling, I can't see anything. It literally takes up every bit of space. So it's something you feel for. You kind of have to work as though you're blind. And you will feel the head of the driver when it seats into the screw. And when it does, you can feel the screw spinning versus just the driver spinning. There's a little resistance. There is a magnet right here on the end of this driver, but it doesn't seem to be quite strong enough right now to pick those screws up. Now, as I lift the computer up, you'll see the lid, our top lid here, has come off. And it doesn't indicate to me, as I remove it, does it go on this way, or this way, or this way, or this way? So I guess when I put this back on, I just want to make sure the writing on the front faces the front. So that means it would go on, I gotta imagine this upside down. This way, okay. Anyway, something you gotta think about when you're taking it apart. Let me rephrase. Something I have to think about when I'm taking it apart, because I often forget. Now, when I turn this over, all the screws are gonna fall out, and if you're not paying attention, which sometimes I don't, they roll off the table onto the floor, and then I'm looking through the carpet trying to find them. And these are at least a bit longer. They are very narrow machine screws with no shoulder on them. They're threaded from top to bottom with a very small head on top. And I just dropped it right in there. Now inside, let's go ahead and unplug this so I can bring it up to the camera. Take the USB out of there for the keyboard and mouse too. Inside, we have a fan that's cooling down The RAM and the NVMe storage and the Wi-Fi card should all be underneath this cooling plate. This is a welcome addition. The fan you're used to seeing in a lot of these disassembly videos is the one on the CPU that's down here. So there are two fans. That surprises me with how quiet the machine is. I would never know there were two fans in this. But yes, all day, yes. Okay. This bothers me when all I see are vents in some mini PCs, and then they allow you to add like a 2.5-inch drive and a second M.2, and I'm like, what about all the heat? And people don't even consider it. And I warn them, I'm like, you should not be putting that in there, but it has a slot. I want to fill it. Okay. I don't know what to tell you. If you needed to add extra storage and you didn't have proper cooling in here, I would just add it USB. It's not like it's going to run any slower, you know, to a SATA 2.5-inch drive. But, you know, to each their own. I just wouldn't do it. But to remove this plate, it looks like we have a, oh, I don't know. Wait a minute. I don't really see anything holding this down. The same screws that hold the lid on seem to hold this plate on as well. But there is tape holding this in place, but I don't see any screws. Let me show you again. You can look at it with me and see if I'm missing anything. I see the 4 screws that hold this down were part of the lid. I see tape. I see what looks to be an NVMe screw right there for the drive that's underneath. It's not attached to this, it's attached to this NVMe drive underneath here. If I can get the camera to focus on it, that would be great. There it is. I'm not a fan of this tape. That means we have to take this tape off, which anytime we got rubber feet, anything sticky, it never quite sticks back the same way. It folds in on itself in the case of tape. I would like it if we could just stop with the tape. So I'd rather have the tape than the sticky feet, but I do wonder over time if the tape is there to hold this piece down, and over time that tape gets brittle and it stops losing its adhesive property, then what's going to hold it in place in 4 years? So that, to me, I'd rather have screws than tape. Now, with the tape removed, we have a power cable here that's running to this cooling fan. Obviously, the fan needs power. So don't go ripping this, you know, tearing it off without considering, how is it spinning? What's providing the power to it? Of course, it has a power cable. Now, what I like about this is they've got 2 thermal pads for your M.2 drives, and one is blue because it's still got the protective tape on it. This is the empty M.2, so when you fill that, if you choose to, remember to peel the tape off and put this down. Think of this as a giant heatsink that's sitting on top of your M.2 drives with an active fan cooling them. That's fantastic. Yeah, I meant to say fantastic with regards to the fan. Now, the rest of the unit, we'll bring that up here, back to the camera, and you'll see there are no RAM sockets in here. And I can assure you, if there were RAM sockets, it would not be 7500 megahertz RAM. It'd be much slower than that. So there's your Crucial P3 Plus 1 terabyte NVMe drive. Should be Gen 4, I believe. And this should also be a Gen 4 slot, if I recall correctly. That's the little plug that powers the fan. I do not see a Wi-Fi adapter, but sometimes they're underneath the NVMe drive. And if you look very carefully, that's exactly where it is. So if we remove the NVMe drive, that, if I can, give me a second, where my finger's pointing underneath the NVMe drive is our standard M2 Wi-Fi adapter. So if we wanted to go to Wi-Fi 7, Wi-Fi 8, Wi-Fi 9, Wi-Fi 112, if it still uses this adapter, you just take this drive out, pop your M.2 out, put your new one in, put your antennas on it. M.2 isn't just used for storage. It can be used for Wi-Fi. It can be used for a couple different things. A lot of times, like some external GPU docks might be connecting into the M.2, which is a PCIe interface. It just doesn't have the bandwidth that a PCIe interface is capable of having. Not that every PCIe interface has a times 16, but there's a reason why when you look at your NVMe speeds, it always says times 4 times 4. It never says times 8 or times 16. You notice that, right? So in any event, that's pretty much as far as you'd ever want to break it down. There's nothing on the other side for you to work on. I've already told you why you shouldn't be removing the cooler. You're only going to make it cool worse. You can only make it worse. You cannot make it better, and you're unlikely even going to make it as good as it is because of the machines that are required to, if this has liquid metal, which I think it does, no human can apply it that way. That's why a machine does it. And I remember talking with Minisforum about this challenge, about how they weren't getting the cooling. They were, getting a lot of reviews about the cooling not being right. And it was because of, there was an inconsistency with the way the liquid metal was being applied. And by doing it by machine, it can seal it in a way that really improves the performance of it, negating the need for a more expensive, louder, or more complicated cooling solution. The idea that you think you can outsmart that, not in that size case, you're not going to. You're going to have to, you could probably throw a giant cooler on the bottom of this, take it out, and put a giant Noctua NH15 on there. But then why did you buy it? So it is from the factory designed to be turned on, utilized to, however you want to utilize it, and you should be trouble-free until you get in here and start playing with it. Then it's on you, with the exception if you want to change out or add more storage, or if you wanted to add or remove the Wi-Fi card, you could do that. That's it. That's all there is. That's all there is. So I'm a big fan of simplicity. It means there's less that can go wrong. And if I was into gaming and I wanted to play AAA titles, I can tell you I can't see a difference between 4K and 1080. Maura and I watched a movie that came out recently, an animated movie, The Wild Robot. Beautiful animation. Mesmerizing how well it was done. And a pretty good story too, by the way. And we watched it in 4K, I think. I don't know how you can tell. So that may be because of my aging eyes, but I think HD looks beautiful. And whenever I watch anything in 4K, I don't see it. So when they're promoting 8K and 12K televisions, I think the cable company here, our cable TV provider, still doesn't offer 4K out of the cable box. So I know I can watch some YouTube videos in 4K, and aside from making the videos bigger and seeing all the flaws, like sometimes you can see, like on YouTube 4K, I can see things I don't necessarily want to see. But most of the time, and especially in animation, I can't see a difference in it. But I forgot why I went on to this topic now. I was going to make a point about it. Oh, 1080 gaming. This can do 1080 gaming on AAA titles. But for people who are like, I want to play my games in 4K. Okay, well, you're not going to be happy with this if you want to play AAA titles in 4K. And you're probably not going to be happy with anything in this price range. You're going to have to double your price. Then you can have that. So nobody's taking anything from you. Nobody's ripping you off. If you must have a Rolls Royce, you need to buy a Rolls Royce and pay the money for a Rolls Royce. You cannot buy something that's not intended to be that and then expect it to be that at half the price or less, because that's what we call unreasonable expectations. You're no longer being reasonable. Now, you might hear a story of somebody saying, I bought a Rolls Royce for $1. It was an estate sale and I just wanted to get rid of it. A, you still got to pay Rolls-Royce maintenance on that thing. An oil change on a Rolls-Royce, you have any idea? So even if you got the car cheap, the maintenance gets more expensive. Well, the same holds true on PCs. So just bear that in mind and set your expectations to be reasonable, because I don't want you to have buyer's remorse or to be misled, that you thought something was going to be different. If anything, I'd rather undersell it so that you are amazed at just how quiet it is, and you're amazed at just how responsive and quick it is, and you're amazed that there's nothing for you to improve on this. There's no point in it. Some people will do it because they want to, but there shouldn't be any reason that you have to. I can understand wanting some more internal storage. I get it, but to a certain limit, because once you start packing in, I'd say anything more than 4 terabytes of storage, you're probably not backing that up. I'm just saying, it's going to take a long time. Now, granted, if you have USB 4 and you have a USB 4 enclosure and you can achieve those USB 4 speeds, your backup's still going to take a long time, but it's as fast as we can go externally right now. And if you've got that kind of money that you can do that, why not just buy a NAS? Why not put everything on the NAS? Utilize your 2.5 gig networking to a 2.5 gig switch to a 2.5 gig NAS. And you're going to move not quite at 40 gigabits per second, but you'll be about 2/3 of that, right? 2.5 versus 4. So I would say for the price and the capacity that you get on a NAS and the universal access to it, if you want to, utilize access from any computer in the building or from any computer outside of the building if you choose to, that's way more versatile than this as far as storage goes. So I am strongly encouraging people to stop having massive amounts of storage in your computer. That's a terrible place for it. We can get it out of the computer. That would be far more cost-effective, reliable, accessible, useful, and expandable than the limitations that you are voluntarily imposing on yourself when you insist on continuing to do things the old way when we didn't have these options, which you are welcome to do. I'm not telling you what to do, just advising. Once you go that way, once you have universal access to a huge amount of storage for a fraction of the price that has no impact on the performance or the heat, and it's super easy to expand it and repair it, and it's accessible anywhere in the building or outside of the building if you want it to be, why would you ever go backwards to having all your storage on one machine? But if you've never experienced it, then you only know what you know. And so what's the expression? Ignorance is bliss. Once you know better and you've had it, it's like a password manager. If you're not using a password manager, the minute you start, you will not be able to go through life. You will be unwilling to start entering all that stuff by hand again and writing down all your passwords and trying to put it away somewhere and trying to come up with a password. And however way you've been doing that, you've been working way harder than you need to. And once you realize it and you experience it, you will not want to go back, just so you know. All right. Christopher Horton says it looks like we traded rubber feet for tape, but was it worth it? I'm going to say I'd rather have the tape than the feet, but more importantly, I'd rather there not be either, right? I don't want to have to remove the foot, and I don't want to have to remove the tape. Just give me a regular, instead of tape, give me a couple small screws. They've certainly done that in the MS-01 with the heatsink where we had to remove a couple of small screws. They didn't put it down with tape. So the fact that we didn't have secure boot enabled, the fact the website says 50 tops and 80 tops on the same site for the same product, there's a mistake there. And the fact the engineering decision to use tape on this at $1,000 price point, at a $300, $400, maybe even a $500 price point, I'd say, okay. But at this price point, I spend the money for the screws. Okay.
Richard Palmentier said he's running some errands. He's got to go. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Richard. Peter VZ with a €1 super chat contribution. Right on. Thank you, Peter. 3D Everything saying good morning from California. Morning. People are asking Mitch where he's off to next. I think he's still in Peru. William Bird said you just got the infamous unsupported mode error. If you don't have an operating system, you would need a different monitor to get into the BIOS. So normally you're going to see that on a television, right? When if you see unsupported mode during the computer boot up process, you can typically fix that by turning the TV off and back on again. But by the time you do that, it's already past the power on self-test screen. And once you're into Windows, it's a supported mode. That is typically limited only to plugging your computer into a monitor, and it depends on the computer and it depends on the monitor, and sometimes it depends on the HDMI cable. I've seen people that buy a brand new $1,000 computer, but they're too cheap to spend $7 on a new HDMI cable. And they go, I don't know why this monitor works and the other monitor doesn't, or the TV works on my old computer, but it won't work on my new one. It's a $1,000 computer. I understand the monitor's old, but it worked with the old one. And I'm like, but did you buy a new HDMI cable? Well, no. Why would I buy a new HDMI cable? There's nothing wrong with it. Well, because there's been 4 different standards in the HDMI cable, and your old computer and your old television use the old standard. But your new computer likely uses the newest standard, and it's $7 for the cable. So just buy the cable and see if it solves your problem. It's not rocket science. This idea that it's a toaster and you can just take it out of the closet after 20 years and plug it in, and it toasted before, so it should toast now. Bread's not constantly evolving into something else that doesn't toast. So the computer's not an appliance. If you're buying a new machine, I cannot stress how important it is that if you're going to plug that brand new machine into anything old cables, old storage devices, old monitors, that will be your point of frustration. If not right away, that will likely be your first point of frustration in the future. Just statistically, highly likely that your first frustration will be related to the oldest piece of hardware failing or no longer being compatible with the ever-evolving changes in technology. So if you want to have the best experience possible, when you buy your new car, don't take the old tires off of the old car and then tell me about how terrible your new car ride is, and that you just had to, you had 2 flat tires and you can't get any traction and it's slipping around in the rain. Why would you do that to yourself? You bought a new car, you put new tires on. Well, it's not like you can. Federal law, I think, requires them to put new tires on the car, so you can't make that terrible decision. But the minute you carry over something old with something new and evolving, too much has evolved between the two. So even, and I can't stress this enough, even if it's working at first, the first failure, when it happens, will likely be the oldest thing. And that includes the cables. And if I were you and you're going to do it anyway, and you have that first failure, which you will, the first thing I would check if I were you, is the old stuff first. That'll likely get you to a solution much faster. And all you did was procrastinate what was going to inevitably happen. I don't know that it saved you any money if you consider the diagnostic time and trouble, and when it happened, it'll be Murphy's Law. It happens at the worst possible time. Again, in my line of work, it's very hard to tell people how if you follow my advice, you are less likely going to have problems. Because they go, well, how could I know that for sure? So I had a client who basically did that and said, we don't believe you actually do anything because we don't see you. I go, you don't need to see me. I'm working remotely at night when the office is closed. But how do we know that? I said, well, how much data loss have you had in the 10 years I've been working for you? None. How much downtime have you had since the 10 years I've been working for you? That was a result of, like if you have a power outage or the construction company cuts the internet, I can't do anything about that. But when has there ever been a problem that I had to come in and fix that shut your whole business down in the last 10 years? It's never happened. How much data have you ever lost? Well, we've never lost any, but you have. I've recovered it. Your employees didn't tell you or you've forgotten, and it was not a big deal because I was able to recover it remotely. We just went off the backup. We were done in 2 minutes. This wasn't a panic. This wasn't a freak out. And you don't remember it or you weren't told. Well, how do I know that even happened? I don't know. So what would happen if we stopped using your services? I don't know. Okay, well, we're going to stop using your services. Okay. We're probably going to be fine if you say so. So why do I have insurance? I never use it. Okay, don't have it. I don't know what to tell you. Four years later, 4 technicians later, everything is screwed up. And I mean everything. They were limping on hardware that was failing. They brought in another tech who replaced the hardware at great expense, only to have it fail because he didn't know what he was doing. They replaced that tech with another tech who undid what that tech did and the tech before him did to put in what he wanted, because every tech thinks they know everything and they want to do it whatever way they want to. And this company doesn't know a thing about tech, so they assume the person they're hiring knows what they're talking about. They spend even more money to take everything and put it out into the cloud. And when they did that, everything got really, really slow and really, really expensive for the costs. And then when their internet died, they had no access to their own data. So then they hired another tech. And then they called me and they said, our email doesn't work. None of our data is available. Both of our servers have been down for months. Would you come back? But here's the kicker. This is the second time they've done it to me. They did it back in the 90s. And then they came back. They asked if I'd come back again. They stayed on for 10 years. I never increased their rate, ever. They paid the same price on the last day as they paid on the first day. As an incentive to not leave, I locked their price in. No matter what, this is your price. So that was a fixed price. They felt that they were overpaying. I said, I don't know about you, but I bet you make more money today than you were making 10 years ago. I'm not. That wasn't a good enough answer for them. They were convinced I wasn't doing anything. So they called me up and they said, would you consider coming back? And I thought, that could not have been an easy phone call for them to make. And it was a lot of work. And by the time all the work was done, do you think they saved any money for the 4 years I wasn't there based on what I was charging them? And if they want to set up with me again, they're not getting the rate that I was charging them that we initiated 14 years ago, that they kept for 10 years. They're getting today's rate. And again, I won't increase their rate based on today's rates if they don't cancel in the future. And they're like, no, we'd rather just call you when we need you, because they're selling the business off, they're retiring, and they want nothing more to do with it. So even when I helped them, they took everything they could get, squeezed me, only this time I was sure to charge them. I gave them no breaks on the bill. I'm like, that's it. If that's how you're going to treat me, you're paying full price, and I'm not doing anything for free. If I have to turn a screw, I'm billing you for it. And so they got a pretty big bill, which was just about the same as what they would have paid if they'd have just kept going to begin with, only they wouldn't have had their mail system down, they wouldn't have had their whole network infrastructure down, they wouldn't have had these added expenses of hardware that did not solve their problem, and there was no maintenance being done. So like the network attached storage units had cobwebs, literally cobwebs on them. So I don't know how to convince people that if you follow the advice I'm giving, you're less likely going to have failures, and the likelihood of failures is reduced. Because if they follow my advice and they don't have any failures, how can they be certain it was because they followed my advice? And if they don't follow my advice and they haven't experienced a failure yet, then why would you listen to my advice? This is a tough job to be in sometimes. If your customer don't appreciate the end result of your work, if they think that would have been the same end result, like where else do they do that? I asked the customer, I said, do you take your car in for an oil change when there's nothing wrong with your car? He's got a very nice Mercedes. He's like, yeah. I go, why do you do that? You take the car into the dealership. They take it somewhere in back where you can't see what they're doing to it. They bring the car back out. They tell you they did all this work, but you never saw it. You have no proof that they did that. They charge you a large amount of money to give you your keys back, and your car runs exactly the same way it did when you brought it in. Why do you do that? What would happen if you said, you know, this is all a big scam. I'm not going to change my oil anymore. How long do you think my car will last if I don't change my oil anymore? I don't know. It's impossible to say. Years, months, maybe you'll trade the car in before a failure occurs. The environment, how you drive it, how far you drive it, how many miles you put on it, what kind of oil it's got in it now, what condition was it in when you stopped. There's just too many variables there. I can't predict it, but I can tell you it's not going to end well. Well, needless to say, even that argument went in one ear and out the other. Customer heard me, still convinced we don't need you. So that's fine. That's their hardware. It's their business. I didn't do anything to provoke that. They never had a data loss. They never had a failure. They never had a system down. 10 years. And I asked him, I go, you think that just happened? He's like, yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know what else to say. So what are you going to do? Cutout clip says the EliteMini AI370 seems pretty overpriced at $1,100 when you can get a UM890 Pro with the same amount of RAM and storage, and an 8945 HS for just $650. The HX370 is good, but it's not that good. So, you know, I thought the same thing until I realized it's all about the graphics. It's all about that 1080, 60 frames per second plus capability of the single most powerful internal graphics chip AMD has ever made. And if you look at the price of graphics cards, like if you look at what graphics cards that you could add, let's say you had a desktop PC, never mind the CPU. Let's say you had a desktop PC and you want to play games at 1080 at no less than 60 frames per second. And I mean the latest AAA titles. What is the cheapest discrete graphics card you can buy on the market today that will accomplish that? And when you add that into the price of this, suddenly it's like, okay, it makes sense now. At least it does to me. The focus, well, Minisforum is focusing on the AI. What Minisforum should be focusing on is the internal graphics card being the single most powerful internal graphics built into a chip that AMD has ever made. And if you're not a gamer, that you may not care. But if you are a gamer, to be able to do that at this, to play those games at that resolution and those frames, AAA titles, with spending this little of money, what else can do that at that price? And I think that's the argument that Minisforum should be making. And again, I'm going to talk to Minisforum about this and say, the gaming market currently today are going to see a value in this. But the rest of the market with regards to AI, it only applies to creators. So what's the point of promoting who is it promoting to? It doesn't make any sense to me. That's why I really struggled when they sent this to me about why were they so excited about it? You know, what's all the hype? What am I missing? That's what I figured out is the key that I think most of us can relate to, is that graphics capability is really being undersold here. And again, if you're not a gamer, it probably doesn't matter to you, but if you are a gamer, we basically have the smallest mini gaming PC on the market that can play AAA titles at 1080 at no less than 60 frames per second. I don't think there's another one on the market that can do that unless it's utilizing that same chip. That's it. That is the latest that AMD can offer you today in 2024 for a mobile chip. It doesn't get any better than this. Intel doesn't have anything better. Snapdragon or Qualcomm doesn't have anything better. This is where we're at today. Otherwise, you can buy all the components modularly, or you can buy an external GPU dock and then throw a graphics card on it, which still isn't going to run as fast as an internal graphics card in a desktop, and you're going to spend more money. So when you think of it this way, I think it begins to make sense. But because I'm not a gamer and it's not important to me, that doesn't mean I can't see the value here for those people who are. Peter says it's also true that from the 7th generation Intel onwards, the video games do not run as well. And so on a 9th gen or 12th gen or 14th gen, yeah, see, I don't know. Those aren't really made to be gaming chip graphics cards. Intel has their ARC series of graphics, right, for discrete graphics. That would be more in line. And then, of course, what is it, Battle Mage or something they've got for that purpose. So if you're buying something that's a tool, and you're playing with it as though it's a toy, and you're complaining this is not a good toy, it's because you didn't buy a toy. You bought a tool. Tools can be used to build things and create things, and toys are to be played with and to entertain you. These two things don't normally coexist other than in personal hobbies. So if you want to buy a toy, buy a toy. And if you want to buy a tool, don't buy a toy. I don't understand why consumers are buying things with an expectation that the manufacturer never promoted. So why would you think it'd be any good at it? There's a reason why when they say the CPU is the best gaming CPU, they're not talking about the graphics. Maybe that's the disconnect. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how to respond to that. If Intel was saying all along that they had the best gaming graphics built into their CPUs, I'd like to see that from Intel, because I don't recall them ever saying they had the best. I think they've been very honest with the performance of their internal GPUs without telling you how they compare. They're just like, here's what it does. It's up to you to decipher that by comparison. They're not going to undersell it. They're not going to say we're not as good. They're not going to do that. They're going to say, here's what it can do. And that should have told you before you bought it what to expect if you're going to use it in that way. I mean, I don't know how that varies from anything else you'd buy. So it's a little frustrating why you would have had that expectation to begin with. But I don't know what games you're playing. And I don't agree that games play worse on newer internal graphics from Intel than on the old ones. That makes no sense to me. They should always play better. And it may not be much better, but it also depends on if the game was coded, to optimize for the Intel GPUs, or if it was optimized 10 years ago on older hardware, then it's going to work better on older hardware. I mean, that's what I think is common sense, but without knowing the specifics, it's hard for me to imagine how you came to this conclusion, but I don't know what to tell you. Charlie Purdy with a $10 super chat. Right on. Thank you, Charlie. "3D Everything." Oh, you guys are talking tomorrow about the evils of sugar. Yes. Yeah. Kaitru Mahali says the NVMe fan is actually held in by screws, and that holds the top. The tape is just for, yeah. So if you look at this piece, just to avoid any confusion, in order to replace or upgrade your M.2 or your NVMe drive, if you were to take the screws out that hold the fan in, you don't have a hole big enough that can get you over here to replace these drives. This is for replacing a fan that's failed. That's all the screws are there instead of rivets, so you can buy another fan if this fan ever goes out. This fan is optional. You don't have to have it, by the way. If this fan should fail on you, you may never know. Unless you have some pretty extreme hardware under here that this heatsink isn't dissipating the heat. This fan is just helping, right? But it's not entirely necessary. Should you ever need to replace this fan for any reason, there are 3 screws. But if we left this in, taped down, and then we took those 3 screws out and took the fan out, we still can't access anything here. This has to come out in order for us to do any work to the M.2 or Wi-Fi. Any modifications would require this removal, and there are no screws that we remove. It's just tape. The screws that hold this in place are the same screws that hold the lid in place. So I'm sorry if you misunderstood that, but just for clarifying anybody else who might have misunderstood why those screws were there. That's there for your benefit. In the unlikely event you would need to change the fan, and that's the only reason they're there. And nothing to do with us accessing the NVMe or Wi-Fi on this, which is the only things you can change or modify. You can't do it with that on. Fan or no fan? So yeah, the screws that hold this plate on, and I guess I'm going to say it 5 or 6 times, they're the same screws that hold this on. So I don't know why the tape has to be on this. It seems like it's unnecessary, but I don't know. I would have preferred that this had its own screws. Or if they're going to share screws, that it didn't have the tape. That's all. That's all I was trying to get across. Sorry if you've misunderstood. Graham wants to know if I've ever done a how-to video on a bad BitLocker on Windows 10 or 11. So BitLocker's a bit like dynamite in the sense that when you set it and you have a problem with it, and in this case in dynamite it explodes, there is no unexploding the dynamite, right? This is not possible. The solution that you're looking for is to always have a current backup. That's it. It's a very simple solution. This will solve, you don't have to figure out, how do I remove a virus? You restore your backup. How do I recover from a dead hard drive? You restore your backup. What if my BitLocker goes bad? You restore your backup. But I don't have a backup. Well, why do you think we talk so much about Acronis on the channel? Acronis TrueImage is, for me, one of the single most important benefits I offer my customers with regards to the speed with which I can upgrade or replace a hard drive, clone over their data. In some cases, I have used Acronis on a drive that's failing and doesn't quite work, but it works enough to be able to pull the data off of it with Acronis. Even though they don't promote it that way, we've done it. There should be a rule, I don't know how we'd enforce it, that says if you buy a computer and you value your data, you will back up your data. And that way, if you have ransomware, viruses, any type of infection, you install a piece of software that screws up your whole machine, BitLocker, anything you can possibly imagine, failed hard drive, even somebody steals your computer, you always have your backup and you restore from your backup. It takes a few minutes. It's relatively stress-free by comparison. You don't need to ask anybody for any help, and you're back up and running, and it's no big deal. And when Acronis is offering you guys 30% off on any of their products, and the price, just the manufacturer's suggested retail price, is already a bargain. I don't know why you're not using it. So the only reason most people are asking questions online in any of this subject matter regarding data is, it's all the same reason. They all have the exact same thing in common. None of them were expecting it. Sometimes people expect it, so they make their backup. But that's a dumb reason. Like, to me, it's like, I'm going to get in my car and I'm just going around the corner, so I don't need to put insurance on it. I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive across the country, so I better put insurance on it. That's the logic. Like, I'm going to attempt this Windows upgrade, so I better back up my computer first. No, no, no. If you have important data on the computer, you need to back it up for no reason at all. No reason. Just because anything can happen at any time, and it will likely be something you did not expect. That's it. It's that simple. Anybody who's ever lost data in the history of computers all has this one thing in common. It doesn't matter why they lost the data. I accidentally deleted it. I put in a piece of software. I got a virus. I got ransomware. Somebody stole it. There was a fire. There was a theft. There was a flood. There was a fill in the blank, hard drive failure. Who cares? Restoring the backup is so easy. You're in and out. You can change a failed drive out in 2 minutes. You can restore your backup in probably 10 or 20 minutes, maybe less. What is this a big deal about? It's all avoidable. And if you don't have a backup, well, you can expect to have these problems going forward. It always will surprise you every single time it happens. So once BitLocker, once it goes off, that's it, you're done. There's not a data recovery in the world that I'm aware of that can get your stuff back. So, yeah. Which mouse am I using here? Let me go back a little bit in the chat, see if I'm missing anybody. Again, if you have a question and I've not addressed it, it's likely because I haven't seen it. You'll need to ask it again so I can see it. Cutout Clips said they got a laptop with the same HX370, 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte for $1,100. Can you tell me the make and model of that laptop? I'd like to see it. Because, I mean, you're expecting me to take your word on something that, as far as I know, doesn't exist. And I'm not saying that you're lying to me, but I'm genuinely curious who makes that laptop and when it came out. This is a brand new chip from AMD. It literally just came out. And I'm not aware that this chip exists in any retail products, at least not here in the United States. So I'd very much like to know what make and model of laptop you have at that price. Anybody can say anything, so I'd like to see it because that seems difficult to believe. I'm not saying you're a liar, but I have no idea what you're referring to. So yeah, having the make and model, instead of saying I have a laptop, tell me the make and model so I can look it up. Also, thank you to Mark Gaines with a 10-pound super chat. Thank you for that. Phil Stodd wants to know, what is the airspeed of a swallow? Do you mean an African swallow or a European swallow? Now, we could test the USB 4 on this. We could plug the Zyke drive in. I have no doubt it's going to run at 40 gigs per second, which is about 3,500 megabytes per second, the same as an internal Gen 3 drive. We could also run Crystal Disk Mark on this internal drive. I expect we're going to get about 5,000 megabytes per second out of it because it's the same drive they use on other mini PCs that are Gen 4. By replacing it with a more expensive drive of a similar capacity, you could probably get up to 7,300, but you'll also be generating more heat. Again, with the fan in there, I suppose that's probably not going to be an issue. But let's see. Carey, thank you. I have concern if someone stole my PC, I would like to be encrypted. Well, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you shouldn't encrypt it. What I'm saying is, if you lock your keys in your car because you didn't want somebody to break into your car, but in doing so, you've prevented yourself from getting into the car, If you put bars on your windows because you don't want anybody breaking into your house, but now there's a fire and you need to get out of the house and you can't get the bars opened, you may be causing your own detriment. However, as long as you have a backup, and I don't know how much clearer I can make this, you are free to do whatever you prefer with your PC with no worry of consequences. However, you will want to encrypt your backup as well, which Acronis has a little checkbox to encrypt it, so you can still have that same level of security on your backup. And it's unlikely you lose the keys to both at the same time, right? So your encryption key for your Acronis backup will be different than your encryption key on BitLocker, and you make your life very, very complicated. Now, if you have had issues with people stealing your data in the past, I totally see where you're coming from. But if your issues are based on mind poison from the internet that have toxically affected your perception, then you're doing something for no reason whatsoever. If we don't have a precedent, personally, an experience that we're trying to avoid happening again, then all you're doing is adding to your system resources, adding to the complexity of your system to avoid something that never happened to you to begin with. So unless you're in an industry that requires encryption as a regulatory requirement of the government, I would strongly advise against it, because the person that it's likely going to prevent in time from gaining access is you. But if you take all the right precautionary measures and you spend the money and you spend the time and you give up the resources and the performance so you can have your encryption and you have your backup that's encrypted, and you spend the money and the time to create those backups and have the backup drives, and you put away your encryption code so you know you can find them when you need them, and the BitLocker, it's very important you don't misplace it, you're welcome to do that if that's what you want to do. On the other hand, if your whole basis upon doing this is because you read about something happening to somebody, but it didn't happen to you, it may never happen to you anyway. So just because you did that, what I can tell you you did is you spent time and money unjustified. If it wasn't required, and it's just you woke up one day, what people don't seem to understand is, for the most part, unless you're a public figure or a celebrity, no one wants your data. Like, your data has no value to anybody but you. People don't know who you are. You have security through obscurity. The reason why people take data, primarily from individuals, is to sell it to them. Nobody else wants to buy it. I'm telling you, nobody cares. This level of self-importance that people want my stuff, nobody wants your stuff. When you pass away, probably nobody in your family wants your stuff. All those collections of things you've got, likely nobody wants that. All right, I've been to enough funerals, and we've dealt with enough of getting rid of friends and families' collections that they were so prized, but nobody in the family wants it. We have no interest in it. In much the same way, when a hacker steals your data, they're doing so to try and get money from you. They won't try and get money from me. I don't want your data. The only one, guaranteed, who values your data is you. That's the point of ransomware. Even the hacker doesn't want your data. They want your money. So if you're going to say, I'll fool that hacker and not spend my money on them, instead I'll spend my money over here on locks and security alarms, you might as well just give it to the hacker. But if you've never had that ever happen to you before, then you're just battling sort of what I would consider toxic thoughts. So I try and be practical at all times when I talk to business owners. If we have regulatory requirements, there's nothing you can do about it. It's a pain in the butt and it costs money and you have to. But if you're a home end user and you're nobody famous, you're not a politician, nobody wants your stuff, man. They don't want it. The only reason they want it is to sell it back to you. That's it. In either case, all you need are backups. That's it. The data you have is more than likely completely worthless and of no value to them. But I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't know how many times somebody's stolen your PC before, but it sounds like you should probably do something to avoid the PC being stolen. That would be, maybe locking your doors or setting up cameras so you can at least see who stole it, who was involved, what day and what time, and you can give that to the police. Let the police do their job. But, that's just my opinion. That's the advice I would give to a customer. I got to get I was looking for my glasses. I guess we can put this back together. And then we'll wrap it up for today. I'm still waiting to see a make and model of a supposed laptop that sells for $1,100 that has the same chip in RAM and storage. I think that was just made up. I'm pretty sure. But if you're aware of one, please let me know. Sincerely, I'd like to know. There's a reason why when you Google or search here on YouTube for a review of this chip, there are none. I'm the only one you're going to find right now on October 31st. No other review exists. We have a prototype. So how did somebody get something that hasn't been released that sells for the same amount but is a laptop? I mean, I don't know what's being offered in other countries, but I see videos from all other countries on YouTube, and there's no video of a review of any such product that I've ever seen. So I want to warn all of you on the internet that without any verification or citation of statements that are made, you should be very suspect. You don't have to necessarily think you're being lied to, but you also shouldn't also suspect that it's the truth unless there's some evidence that supports that. And if they provide that, hey, all good. Got nothing to say, right? Verify. Verify, verify, verify. Always be skeptical. That's all I'm saying. Even the things I tell you, verify it. If it matters to you and you're like, that doesn't sound right, check it. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe you misunderstood. I don't know. I have no reason to lie to you. Peter with a €1 super chat. Thanks again, Peter. Charlie says, I'll take 2 of those laptops. Yeah, tell us what they are so we can buy one. I'd like to review it. All right, so with that fan back in, again, without any screws securing it, I guess I can put the tape back. I don't know how important this tape really is. Not quite sure why it's there. So there'll be an email I'm sending to Minisforum with my thoughts on this, and see if they can explain it in a way that I can understand it. But definitely Secure Boot to kind of drop the ball there. So I'm sure they'll appreciate me bringing that to their attention, sincerely. Now, again, not quite sure how this goes back on, but if we go to the front, right, and we know the Minisforum logo faces the front, it sure would be nice if we had some kind of maybe a white dot here and a white dot there, or an arrow. Minisforum has placed the arrow under the lid on other models. I don't know why this one is different. Now, this lid, it does have a seam around it, and that's normal. It's not seamless. The seam is part of the design. So when I'm putting this on, my initial sort of gut instinct is to push it down further until the seam goes. I can't see my map. I really got to get 2 monitors set up over here. Watching a delay. Okay, so that is the seam I'm referring to, and that's fully seated. If you try and push it down any further than that, that is an effort in futility that will only frustrate you. So that is properly seated. We have the right orientation, the Minisforum logo facing the front, and now we can put the 4 screws back in that secure that plate and secure the lid. So to put these screws back in, because they're so deep in there, you just drop them in. Make sure you put them in the right orientation. You want the screw head facing up when you drop it in, because you'll never be able to flip it back around without emptying it out. See, that one almost went in head first. It ain't Michael Phelps. All right, let's see if I can feel for the head of that screw. There it is. Don't over tighten. It's plastic, so as soon as you feel The screw gets snug. Don't tighten it any more than that. It'll make it very difficult for you to get out in the future, and you could strip the screw out and you could crack the plastic. All right. Someone's provided us a link to a laptop. Asus and ROG make an HX370. Excellent. Let's take a look at it together. The ROG, hold on, I got to get the right mouse. I keep grabbing the wrong mouse. ROG Zephyrus G16. And there's also a Vivo book. Let's take a look, because what I'm curious about is if these laptops are available or if they're coming out. So let me take a quick search here, and I do appreciate you providing this info. Yeah, click the wrong thing. Hold on a second. Asus. So we have two different laptops from two different viewers here. I can copy and paste that so I don't have to retype it. I want to try this ROG Zephyrus, because ROG is Republic of Gamers, right? So that tells you all you should need to know with regards to the gaming prowess of this particular AMD chip. What does it say? It's a 2024 model. When was it released? Okay, let's take a look at this together. I want to emphasize proof and evidence. So first of all, this is not $1,100, all right? This is nearly twice the cost. That makes more sense. And secondly, where can we buy it? Let's see. It says it's in stock at Best Buy. Can we buy it? Ooh, those are not good reviews. Oh, am I not sharing my screen? Oh, I am. Okay. $1,900 at Best Buy. But this has an NVIDIA RTX 4060. This is an AMD Ryzen AI 9, but is it the 370? There is a 365, I believe, as well. It says, where's the specs on this? Advanced. Oh, that is advanced. Where is it? Where's the chip? Where's the chip? That's all Windows 11. Yeah, it says it's the HX370 CPU. So it is the right processor. And we are seeing 50 plus tops, which tells me the Minisforum site where it said 80, but it also said 50. I suspected the larger number was a typo. So I will bring that to their attention. But we're definitely nowhere near the same price range. But we're also not using a discrete graphics card, and that does help explain the price. But let's take a look at what the other one was, because someone said they bought a laptop that was the same price, $1,100, that had the same processor and the same specs, the same 1 terabyte SSD and the same 32 gigs of RAM. And I'm just trying to verify if that was true or not. And by the way, I've not seen any review on YouTube for this laptop, or any, when you search YouTube for the Ryzen 9 370, AI370, I'll have to search again, but I've not found anybody reviewing it. So I was trying to do my research on this before I started today's video, and it was very hard to find any information on this chip. It's that new. But let's take a look at the Vivo book. This is a Vivo book 14. Perfect. We've got a model number here. And let's type a search result, type that into Google, see what we get. Okay, we go back to Best Buy. And let's take a look at what this is. So $949, well, that's an Intel Core Ultra 5. That is not an AMD. Let's type the search in here. Yeah, we're not getting that model number. Maybe the ASUS website. I gotta stop hitting the wrong keyboard. Let's see. Here we go. This is a Ryzen AI 9 with 24 gigs of RAM, not 32, with 512 gigs of storage, not 1 terabyte. And it is $959, which is, with the discounts right now that Minisforum is ordering, you're actually getting more RAM and more storage. And what are we doing for graphics on this? Is it just running the internal? Well, this one's got a different number. This says 45 tops. So which CPU specifically are they using? There are a couple of different Ryzen AI 9s. As I mentioned, there's a 365, and there's a 370 that I'm aware of. There might be more. But it bothers me they're not giving us the model of CPU. They're just giving us the name. Yeah, it's very vague. I don't know which processor that is. It's Windows 11 Home. We have Windows 11 Pro, but that's not really a big deal either way. Of course, it'll have a webcam and a screen. I mean, that's nothing to shake a stick at. But I'm not sure we have the same CPU here. How many cores and threads does it say it's got? It doesn't tell us. And again, you see the LPDDR5, that's going to be soldered on, just so you know. I don't see any USB 4. Oh yeah, it's got USB 4. It's got one, just like we have here. That's the same. But what is the CPU? Is it the cheaper CPU? I mean, there's got to be a reason they're not telling us. There must be some reason. Is it an oversight? I mean, it's kind of important. This can't be right. That Wi-Fi can't be that old. Ryzen AI 9. So we got no model number of which Ryzen AI 9 they have. I'm still trying to figure out how many cores, how many threads, something that can indicate which CPU. Now this person, this is from a 2023 model, and this chip did not exist in 2023, so clearly that's, every single product that you see under the price, when you look at an Amazon page and you see there's 3 products, then reviews for all 3 products are all gathered together. So when you read the reviews, you've got to look at the review style to see which model they're referring to when multiple models are mentioned, because they are compiled together. And I'm just seeing 2023 model over and over and over and over. I don't see anything on this one at all. Very strange. So without knowing the cores and without knowing the model of AMD Ryzen, we already know the specs don't match in storage and RAM. So whoever it was that said that, I mean, I'm still not seeing anything that's coming close in price for what you're getting from Minisforum, and I'm not Minisforum's not paying me. I'm just telling you, this is how it is, man. I mean, until I have more information, based on the information you guys have provided so far, you've done nothing but verify what I've already said. So let me go down here and go back to camera 1. Oh, I've been on camera 1 this whole time? I thought I was on my window capture. I've been looking up and down at, my apologies, I thought I was on screen capture. So it says here, style 2024 model. You see how there's 3 different models here? And when we scroll down, because I thought I was showing this to you, when we scroll down to the reviews say style right here. They're reviewing the 2023 model. And then so if we look at every review, this is what I thought I was showing this to you guys. But yeah, that's where we're not getting any reviews of the 2024 model, and nothing in the product description or photos tells you which AMD processor or how many cores it has. It's just not here. There's stuff about Copilot and sound and the keyboard and the screen resolution. There's stuff about the cooling and how many vents it's got, like that matters. And then as we keep going, there's how thin it is and how light it is. And it tells you how many watts it is. And it's got a Copilot key that I have never met anybody who wants that. And then it says up to AMD Ryzen AI 9, but it's not specific about which AMD Ryzen AI 9. That's like saying up to Intel Ultra CPU or Intel Ultra 7. Right now there's only one, but there's going to be several to choose from. Just like, maybe it's a bad example, I should say, just like an Intel Core i7. Which one? Which Core i7? This is so vague. But you notice how small the words up to. Up to. And then you look at the specifics, it still doesn't tell us which CPU is in there. And that could explain the price difference. But there's no way the Wi-Fi on this is 802.11bgn, as they say it is. There's no way, because that would be like Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 3. There's no way they put that old of a Wi-Fi on this. So I think there's some errors on the page. But anyway, let me go back to the chat. Maybe you guys have some updates I'm not seeing that might clear up my confusion. I'm hoping. I'm not seeing any updates in the chat offering me any corrections. Mr. Apple wants to know if I know if RoboForm will offer 60% off again this year. You know, we have not had RoboForm on in a while, and I'll tell you what ends up happening with the sponsors. And you think about it, it really makes sense. When we introduce a brand new product to you guys, there's a huge spike in the downloads, right? Whether or not you buy it, there's always a free trial. Otherwise, I wouldn't be promoting it here. And we see this enormous response. And the company's very happy. They're like, hey, this is great. You know, we just acquired a bunch of new potential clientele. You know, I'm just making an introduction. Okay. And if the company's offering that at a discount to get your business, they're doing that not because they're a charity. They're doing that because they're hoping that if we sell it to you cheap this year, you'll pay full price next year. If they sell it to you cheap every year, then that would be the normal price they'd sell it for. The reason they don't sell it at that price normally is because their business would collapse. Their expenses would exceed their income. So the idea is that we universally, we want to entice a client in with an offer. Think of it like a coupon at a restaurant. So you have a coupon for a couple dollars off a meal. And maybe you wouldn't eat there, but you got the coupon and you use it. And let's just say you tried and liked the meal and you'd like to eat it again, but you don't have another coupon. But now you know what you're missing. Now before you didn't know. Before you're like, yeah, I've never been there. Now they've given you a reason to go. So here's a coupon. You can use it once. Usually coupons can be used once. And if you like it, which is what they're hoping, you're going to want to have it again, and you're going to pay the regular menu price. If they could offer it for the coupon price all the time, then that would be the price, and then you'd want a coupon for that. So the idea behind whether it's Acronis or RoboForm, the idea is to bring you in, and this is pretty true of any subscription service. We're going to bring you in for a certain period of time at a less than retail price in the hopes that once you have it, you'll see it's worth what we're asking. I would not count on RoboForm or any company offering a discount the same to an existing customer as they do to a new customer, because the reasoning is very different. There's something in business called customer acquisition cost. And if you watch Shark Tank, or you can hear all these business terms, ROI, CAC, there's all kinds of business terms. So if you're putting commercials, those commercials, they cost money to make them, they cost money to air them. If they're pop-ups, somebody has to design them, someone's got to proofread them, and then you got to pay every time they pop up. And then how many pop-ups have to appear before you make one sale, and how much did you spend to get the sale? How much did it cost you to fulfill the sale, and how much is left over at the end of the sale? And if you can't pay your employees and your developers and your marketers, then you have to raise your prices. It's a long way for me to say, once we have that spike on a new product, when we bring in a Acronis for the first time, and we have a deal we've never offered before, we get this huge spike. And then any additional sales that occur after that are typically coming from viewers who've never seen the channel before. We offered a deal 9 months ago. They're seeing it for the first time today. Maybe they take advantage of it. And then any sales after that initial spike are just kind of flat. They don't usually spike again. So when it comes to the incentive behind the company to promote here, they've already been fed, right? Everything else they're getting now, or the effectiveness of the marketing is just not as effective. Will they continue offering a discount at all based on the returns being so low now? Because everybody who's a regular to the channel, who's seen this channel, is, if they were interested in the product, they probably would have already gotten it. So then what's the incentive to renew, right? That becomes the question. Well, if they're going to charge me full price, like, what's the incentive? Well, you think of any other type of subscription service you have. Your cable company probably raised the price on you after a certain period of time with an introductory offer. If you have a VPN, they'll say, your first year or first certain period of time is this much, and then after that it goes to a bigger number. I have some remote access software I like to use, and it's got an introductory price for the first year, which is shocking when you get the renewal price, because the renewal price is like 4 times more. And the company kind of poisoned themselves when they set up the value. When they said, you can have this for $25 for your first year, you think it's worth $25. Oh, no, it's worth $125. And when you renew next year, and you can cancel if but if you don't cancel it, it's going to auto renew at $125. I can assure you, I look at that and go, wasn't this $25? But then I think to myself, am I using it? Yes. Am I enjoying it? Yes. Do I want to learn something else? No. Am I unhappy with the product? No. It's just easier to pay $125. It's worth it. But they're not doing themselves a favor by devaluing what the product is worth. And if they continue charging $25, they won't be able to have a product any longer. It'll just go out of business, and there won't be any product to have at any price. So that's the dilemma. If you're the one doing the selling, how do you balance that? And my concern with our existing sponsorships is that, they're not even sponsorships, they're endorsements. My concern is that we've spiked on everything when we first introduced it, and ever since then it's been pretty flat. So there's not a lot of incentive for them to even continue offering a discount to anybody. Like, it's affecting so little now. The number of new sales that they're acquiring as a result of us may be four a month, when it used to be 300-400 a month. or at least for the first 2 months, and then it just goes. And I think that's true of any channel, unless we're always getting a new audience constantly. We're getting a lot of Google search attraction, or if we're constantly changing the products up, so there's always something new for you to get. And I'm not trying to squeeze you for a bunch of stuff. These are products I actually use, and I think they're worth every penny. So I have not talked to RoboForm. They haven't really had any reason to talk to me because there's not much left for people to take. The people that have got it probably already have it. And maybe I'm wrong. This isn't anything RoboForm has said to me. This is my own conclusion. I like RoboForm. The people there are great. There's no animosity. There's no problem. But if I was RoboForm and I saw this huge spike, I'd be like, yeah, let's keep going. And as we keep going, it just goes like this. There's not an incentive in the world that's going to return back that spike. So at the end of the day, it's their choice to make. But so far, I can tell you honestly, I've not spoken to the folks at RoboForm for the majority of this year. I think the last I spoke to them was back in February. And we've had no reason, right? We're just, there's the 30% off for new clients, that's it. And if there was any discussion of any sort of endorsement or sponsorship or discount, that needs to be in place now. Like they can't hit me up with that in 3 weeks. It's too late. We're going to miss the holiday season. We have to discuss it now. I can tell you that since it's not been discussed, like I haven't asked, but they also haven't reached out, I have to assume everything's going to stay the same until eventually they decide what's the point, right? Or I decide what's the point. Why should I keep promoting it and talking about it if it's resulting in 4 sales a month tops? Like, let's just stop. It's clearly not having an effect, and it may be annoying the regular viewers who have to keep hearing it over and over again. So that's the situation I find myself in. But at the same time, if I don't have anything else to offer you, I feel like I'm not providing you the benefit of being my viewer. There should be some membership benefits with regards to just being a viewer, that you can get certain discounts here you wouldn't find anywhere else, just because, not because you're a member, but because you're a viewer. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of balancing. But it's a long way to say is no. As far as I know, there's no other discount in the works, or nothing's been planned and nothing's been spoken about it. And I could have said no. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe they're planning something they haven't told me, but I can't imagine why. Zero mentions another content creator reviewed a unit that had the same chip, but I don't believe it was for sale. Is that chip for sale? Is there a, what is it? I believe that content creator was given a prototype, and I believe there were stipulations that the information provided may not be the final product. So I'm the only one as far, well, I'm told this is a prototype, but we know they've already shipped these to clients. They've already said on the website they're shipping these. All the orders that were placed, all the pre-sale orders that were placed up until yesterday are shipping out November 4th, just a couple days from now. So I can't imagine this is as rough of a prototype as what anybody got earlier than this, right? What they saw earlier was a concept. And how that concept becomes reality, it's hard to say. It's hard to say if there are major changes or minor changes. They're going to put, you know, SO-DIMM memory in it. Are they going to use LPDDR5? Are they going to use the 370? Are they going to use the 365? I believe the video you're referencing is very vague over a non-existent product that was in development, at what it could be and how certain things on it weren't working. But they would work in the future. Maybe ports on it didn't work because it wasn't a finished product. We have a finished product. And I guess we have some viewers that If you say, could you get that to me? They're going to respond, I could. There are people like this on the planet, and I know you've run into them. You say, would you get that for me? And they say yes. Like they're so literal, they treat you like you're a computer or that you're talking to a computer. And any inference, you have to talk to them as though they're a machine, because they can't assume, or they refuse to assume, than to take anything you say but literally. So I believe what I said was accurate. We are the first hands-on review of the AI370 HX mini PC. I don't think there's another one out there that has a finished product. This is basically a finished product. As far as I can tell, nothing changes from this prototype to what's being shipped. But I hope I can catch it in time to let them know about the secure boot. I hope. But those units might have already shipped. I don't know yet. Or they might have already caught this. But it's not like we have a... So one of the issues, if you're going to be a reviewer and you get a product that's going to come out, that product may never come out. You have to understand that. You're dealing with an idea. You're dealing with a concept. You can go to an auto show when you can see all kinds of concept cars. And when they come out to the public, they'll look nothing like, typically. They're like, that's not what it looked like. Because the reality of it, mass manufacturing and cost, it has to all be balanced out. So when we're dealing with the concept, you have to understand the content you're watching is based on the information that was available at the time, not based on something you can replicate. In other words, could you go get the model of machine that that person was using right now and test it yourself? Maybe today you could, but regardless, it's a nitpick that is dealing with something that is, in my opinion, not focusing on the machine we have, but instead is trying their best to make it look like I'm a liar. And I don't appreciate, comments that do that, because they're often lacking information or they misunderstood what I said. And it's quite offensive and unwelcome. But be that as it may, whether or not somebody else did a review before me isn't the point. As far as I know, what I'm telling you is true. The focus shouldn't be on that. The focus should be on what I'm reviewing. I don't think you understood the point of the video if that's all you're taking from this. The point is, this model has these features, is available for pre-sale. It has a price. You can order it today. We can measure it. We can test every port that works. Every port works, and we know what to expect. That's the whole point. Anything you're picking up outside of that, you've completely misunderstood the whole reason this video exists. And when we do that, it's why we shut off the public chat. That's why we go to members only chat, because we don't get this kind of unnecessary scrutiny that has absolutely no benefit to the subject at hand. Your question and your comment should be about the unit. If you're aware of another unit that sells similar to this that's available to buy today, be it a laptop or any other format, I'd like you to share the make and model with me so we can go and compare it. That's how I learn, right? I don't have all the information, but if the information you're provided is conjecture, or you're focusing on the color of the wall or the style of my hair, I don't think you're really, you're not here for the right reason. So if we go back to turning back on chat for members only, this is why. It's unnecessary dialogue and criticism and scrutiny that's not justifiable, in my opinion. It's just annoying. It's rude. So be in front of the camera sometime and deal with that. Just because you're providing information for free, they're going to punish you. Thanks. I voluntarily clicked on your video at no cost so I can criticize you. Wonderful. So glad we turned public chat on today. Okay. David Graham with a $2 super chat. Thank you, David.
You also have email.
Oh, emails. Thank you for reminding me. Emails. Oh, Charlie Purdy sent an Amazon gift card. Look at that. $50 from our friend Charlie. Thank you so much, Charlie. We have also a PayPal contribution of $50 from Charlie's. Well, here it says Charles. I don't know if he goes by Charlie or Charles. He says, Happy Halloween. Well, thank you so much. Again, a thank you to our friend Frankie B with a very generous Amazon gift card earlier. Have I missed anyone?
No.
Okay. And a bunch of political messages telling me who to vote for. Oh, man, I can't wait till that stops. Every day, the phone just keeps getting all these messages, and they block them, and my series of blocked numbers is now bigger than my contacts list. It's crazy. And then, of course, none of those blocked numbers will ever try reaching me again after the election, so there's no reason to consume the space on the phone for one-time use numbers. But the phone's doing a good job of the AI sorting through that for me, and it just lets me check it to make sure it's doing a good job and correct it if necessary. And so far, no corrections have been needed. It's been really good. Shadow Dash says, is the computer on Amazon? The computer is a pre-sale item, meaning that Minisforum, before Minisforum offers it on Amazon, they offer it at their website, which is right over here. We have a link to this in our video notes. And so currently, as a pre-sale item, you would buy it directly from Minisforum, and then you would get the next batch that they make. They don't have enough extra to offer any for sale on Amazon. They will, but the initial product launches, like anything else new, they can't make enough of it. And then, I mean, unless it's a dud, but usually that's pretty par for the course that they have more people that want it than they have devices. So in this case, they have from October 29th until the 20th of November, they're incentivizing you to get a brand new keyboard and mouse included at no additional price, along with a $100 gift card, which I suspect is a Minisforum gift card to buy something else from Minisforum in the future. So they're saying it's going to sell for $1,400. They're pre-selling it for, let's call it $1,100. If you were able to place your order prior to the 29th, which has already passed, your unit will be shipped out on the 4th of November, which is 4 days from now. Any order that's placed now in up to the 20th of November or 19th of November, your order will ship on the 20th. So I would imagine that this will probably be made available on Amazon sometime around this window. So if you want to wait till late November, early December, because you want to buy it from Amazon, that's when I think it will probably be available. But if you want it first, if you want to be an early adopter before everybody else gets it, right now you have to pre-order. I'm just surprised that they're already sending units out, because I thought I was getting an earlier look at this. Like, I thought they want my opinion before this ships, but clearly they've already I think anything I tell them for any improvements, if they implement any of those improvements, I don't think they're going to be able to do that in time for this ship date, but they will certainly be able to do it in time for this one. So yeah, and then after that, after these dates, then they're saying, okay, after the first 150 are sold, they're taking away the keyboard and mouse set. Now, I don't know what keyboard and mouse set you're getting. Let's click on that and see. Oh, it's a Minisforum branded. Well, it's only worth 30 bucks. I mean, that's not a big deal. But you will need a keyboard and mouse. This is not a laptop, so the fact they're going to throw that in, sure, why not? I mean, the $100 gift card seems a lot more generous than the keyboard and mouse. But after they sell 150 units, you don't get the keyboard and mouse included anymore. Just so you know, that's a incentive to pre-order. Understand that when they sell on Amazon, they have to pay Amazon a commission. And that commission may be about $30. That's why Minisforum might say, hey, we would rather have your business than have Amazon have your business. We want you to buy from us directly so we don't have to pay Amazon the commission. You might want to buy from Amazon because the shipping or the return, I don't know what sort of shipping delay. I mean, Minisforum is already saying that there will be a delay before this ships because they have to make them. And I don't know how their return policy works. So for those reasons, you know, I prefer, and I make no secret about it, to buy from Amazon. So I have the peace of mind that even if it's shipping directly from the manufacturer through Amazon, I have Amazon's return policies, and I don't have to learn the return policies of another company and potentially be upset that my expectations were not met. But on the other hand, if you want to be first, if this is something you can't wait to get your hands on, there is a way for you to get it. And this is the only way you can get it right now. And I suppose that's one of the downsides of wanting to be first. You likely pay more to be first on anything, and you likely have to wait in a line, right? And then you get to say, look what I have. But that goes with anybody being first in anything. I mean, if you want to go to a popular movie on opening night, there's not going to be a discounted ticket price, and there's going to likely be a line. So wait a couple weeks, you'll probably be able to walk in and not have a worry about where you're going to sit, all that other stuff. But anyway, let's see, we're almost 3 hours into today's broadcast. We did run a bit longer, but when we have a product like this and we have interaction with the chat, you know, I do my best to be as thorough as I can be. In some cases, you know, testing the speed of the NVMe, I'm sure it's going to be the same as they always are. The USB 4, I'm sure it's going to be the same as USB 4 is. Like, we have no reason to believe anything about this is any different than the specifications of the parts that they're using. And they don't make the parts. They don't make the CPU. They don't make the RAM. They don't make the storage. So it's going to perform exactly the same way anybody else who uses those same parts is going to perform. And I'm puzzled why so many people want to see that when it's always going to be the same, unless something's drastically wrong. But we've not seen anything with this other than the secure boot mode being disabled in the BIOS out of the gate that would raise any concern with performance, noise, reliability, ease of access. Everything seems great. And it will run exactly as the specs from AMD say, exactly as the specs from Crucial say. Just like anybody else who uses those parts, they're going to get the exact same within margin of error end results. So the question then becomes, what's my warranty? What's my support? What's my price? And that's where we need to be focused, in my opinion. Mara mentions, again, all the links and details on today's unit, all in the video notes below the video. Jeff wants to know what router you would recommend. I've gone through 2 Netgear Nighthawks in the last 5 years, and they were not cheap. Well, it's a difficult question to answer, because if every Netgear router customer had your experience, Netgear wouldn't be in business anymore. So I don't know what Netgear routers you had, exactly how old they were when they failed, why they failed, or what you're calling a failure. These are all things that you're defining, that you're assuming we're on the same page about. And we're not. It's impossible. For some customers, I'll recommend a cheaper router or a certain brand of router. And for other customers, it may be a mesh router, a travel router. It may be a wall-mounted router. It may be a table router. It may be based on where the router is going to be placed in the building, how big the building is, what the building material is made of, what devices you're connecting to it at what distance, and what the congestion of other Wi-Fi traffic you have where you live. In an apartment building with a lot of other Wi-Fi routers all around you, up and down and left and right, it's going to be a bit challenging, and something like this would be overkill and expensive and likely out of your budget. And if you're connecting a lot of old stuff to it, that's going to limit the whole router to begin with, unless you spend more money on the router. So you need to do your research to figure out which router meets your needs at your budget. And if you're concerned about having to replace it within a certain period of time, Places like Amazon and Best Buy offer an extended warranty, and that can be the peace of mind you're looking for. In most cases, when you have a router that fails you after, I'd say, 2 years or more, it's doing you a favor, because there are plenty of people out there still using routers that are 10 years old that have never been updated. They don't know how to update them. They don't know you're supposed to update them. And they're very insecure online by comparison. Obviously, these aren't going to be power users, and these aren't people who understand the benefits of one router over another. They just know if it works or not. That's all they know. That's all they want to know. They're not interested. Unless there's a problem, they're not interested. So when their router dies, it's actually doing them a favor security-wise, and maybe even performance and reliability-wise, to get something new and modern. So how long should a router last? In my opinion, no more than 5 years. If you have a router that's 5 years or older, regardless of who makes it and how much you paid for it, it is my professional opinion you should replace that router for security reasons, but also for performance reasons too. You likely will get no support on a router outside of warranty, including updates. Firmware updates typically stop. Somebody's got to get paid to do that. And if there's no money coming in to pay for that, they typically go, we can't afford to pay developers to keep updating your old router. We're not a charity. You know, this thing it's not a toaster, it's not an appliance. It needs constant updates to remain secure, to remain compatible. And if you buy something like this, and you're like, I got this great PC with this, ultra fast Wi-Fi, but your router's, several years old, your limitation, your choke point is your router. If you call your cable company and say, I want faster internet, but your router can't deliver that speed, you're paying your cable company for nothing. And it's not their fault. So you really have to figure out which router fits your scenario, right? The distance you want the signal to run, where the router gets placed, how much traffic, air traffic of other Wi-Fi devices you have around you, how many devices you're connecting, and how old those devices are at what speeds, in order to determine with that data, because it's like you're trying to, how do I drive a car without getting into a car accident? Pay attention. Like there's no answer I can give you that can answer your question, because I don't know how you drive, what you're driving, what shape it's in, what the weather's like, how far you're going. It's an impossible question. I'm sorry, I can't answer it. Now, if it was something where I was on site and you hired me and I came into your building and I looked around and I ran some tests and I could see what you're connecting and I can evaluate your assets and your expectations and your budget, then I could recommend something. But that's a massive investment of time on my part to figure it all out. There is no one magic router fits all. It just doesn't exist. And spending more doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get any benefit from it. But you will receive benefit from having a newer router universally, from the sake of security, reliability, warranty. There's always that benefit. The problem is, if we lived in the Soviet, if we had a communistic society, we'd all get the same thing, right? If we lived in an Apple economy, we'd all have the same thing. It's, in my opinion, overpriced. I mean, the Mac Mini only just got this small. We've had this for years. Mac Mini's acting like they just invented it. Welcome aboard. We've been here for years. Where have you been? And then the price that they want for it, ridiculous. And you want to talk about storage and RAM being limited? You need to visit the world of Apple. And what Apple's doing is they're limiting your choices so you're not burdened with this process of making a decision. And it's like a frozen TV dinner. You can make the dinner yourself cheaper. But if you want the convenience of just popping this thing in the oven and heating it up and eating, you're going to pay a convenience fee for that. It's likely not healthy or good for you, but you don't have any dishes to wash. You don't have any preparation bowls to clean, and you don't need any kitchen appliances, and you don't have to do the work. You just pop it in the oven or the microwave, you push the button, and you're eating. There's a fee for that, a convenience fee. That's why they're convenience foods. And if you want that, you pay for it. If you want to prepare your own meals, you can make them healthier and cheaper, but you will be washing some dishes and it will require more preparation, but it will cost you less money. I don't think this is news to anybody, but it applies across the board in life as far as I know. And, you know, one person might ask, if you had a bad experience with your first Netgear router, so you bought a second one, and then you had another bad experience with the second one, why in the world would you buy a third one from the same company that you're complaining about? I understand the first one could have been a fluke, but the second one, having a similar lifespan or less, would certainly point me away from that manufacturer. From my own experience, I've not had that experience with Netgear, so I don't know what you're talking about. But if I had, I would not have bought a third one. I'd be looking at Asus, TP-Link, you know, another major brand. I wouldn't go to one of the cheaper Asian brands for lack of, where's my support? You know, that would be my concern. Am I forgetting somebody? I feel like I left a router maker out of there. Asus, TP-Link, Netgear. I feel like there's one more big one I'm missing. But you understand what I'm saying. You can go to Amazon and you can buy from a manufacturer you've never heard of before. And they might be fine. You know, they might be out of India, Vietnam, China. But I don't know how you're going to get any warranty. I don't know how you're going to get any support. And if that matters to you, and it sounds like it does, I would definitely stick with a name brand. That's about the best advice I can give you. I mean, I appreciate the question. I just wish I could be more helpful in that. Chris says, waiting is sometimes worth it. The 7900X was as low as $349 over the summer. That's true, yeah. In fact, if you want to buy technology that came out 5 years ago, there's a great price on it. Let's take a look at the 14900 real quick. You must want me to wrap it up, huh?
No, you can do whatever you want.
Oh.
I just want to tell you that there's another email that just came in.
Uh-huh.
Cute.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll check it out in a minute.
Okay.
I wanted to point something out here. As you're well aware, there's a lot of negative reviews on Intel's their new Ultra line of processors, right? And let me share my screen and let me show you something. First of all, there's nothing wrong with Intel products. The new Ultra line doesn't blow up or catch fire or fail to work. The whining and complaining is it's not working any better than the previous gen. Let's just clear that right now. There's this presumption that anything new must outperform the thing it's replacing without considering efficiency, energy consumption, and the new platform that allows us to grow. But regardless of all that, let me just show you something. Yes, waiting will always save you money, always, but you're always going to get less by comparison. In this case, it might be a little different. This might be an exception. But let's jump over to Amazon right quick and let me see if I can. Let's pull up an Intel. Come on, keyboard. There it goes. Intel Ultra 7. All right. And that sells for $399. And now that's basically an i7, right? Let's pull up the flagship 14900K, nearly the best they made. I think there's a KS, but again, the K is the flagship right there. That's a $600 processor that you can buy today for only $40 more. It's an i9 that, if you're gaming, is going to perform better in gaming for $40 more than that Ultra 7. But if you wanted this when it came out, you would have not only paid $600+ for it, you'd also have dealt with all the BIOS updates and the potential damage to the chip through the motherboard manufacturers universally overvolting these chips to the point of severe degradation. That's been solved as long as you put the latest BIOS update on. It's no longer a concern. There's nothing wrong with this chip anymore. There was never anything wrong with it to begin with. It was the motherboard makers, all right? That's been resolved now. So not only would you have paid more, but you would have suffered through all of that. Now you're getting almost $200 off of it because it's devalued because the new processors are out. So when you're looking at the new processors and you go, okay, let's take another look at that Ultra 7. I think this is fascinating. The Ultra 7, which apparently I have to be more specific, was a little over $400 yesterday. Now it's at $399 today. And the difference between Intel and AMD now in this range is almost imperceptible. Like, the line is so blurred. If you look at an AMD 9900X, yesterday this chip was $440, and today it's $412. I've actually seen this a little cheaper. It seems to be around $407. And if you look, everything about this chip seems to match Intel's chip, but no one's complaining about this one. And the reason they're not complaining about it is it didn't just come out. You understand? Now everybody's focused on the one that's not here yet, and you know, who cares this one? This one's yesterday's jam. I don't think there's such a thing as yesterday's jam. Anyway, so now they're focused on the new 9000 series X3D that's going to come out. It's going to be out November 7th. They're just foaming at the mouth waiting for that. Nobody's really talking about this chip in comparison for about the same price. Almost everything is the same. This will be better at gaming because the built-in graphics are simply better from AMD for gaming. But the Intel chip is probably better for production. It just depends on what production, right? Are we talking Adobe Premiere, or what are we talking in that regard? It's not universal. In some cases, this chip will still outperform the Intel in production tasks. In others, the Intel chip will outperform it in production tasks. So unless you're a gamer, it's a hard decision. They're basically the same price with the same specs. Maybe the Intel chip runs on less power, but maybe the AMD chip runs cooler. I don't know. I would be hard pressed if I were simply benchmarking an AMD Ryzen 9 9900X against an Ultra 7 from Intel. I would be hard pressed to tell them apart in most tasks for about the same amount of money. So your difference is going to be in the cost of your motherboard, and your difference is going to be in what you expected. So because the Ultra 7 just came out, they're just expecting it to be better. Even though it's a first generation product, I don't think it's fair. It's not a bad product. There's nothing wrong with it. People expected more than they got. Well, whose fault is that? So if your purpose if buying a chip is to play games, you could spend a tiny bit more to get last year's flagship, the 14900K, which I'm trying to go back to. But if you want to save even more money, you can go to a 12900K, and that'll be even cheaper. That's about $150 less, right? And it's 125 watt, it's 8 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. And you can still easily find motherboards for the 12th, 13th, and 14th gen. Now, if you want to go another generation behind, you can save even more money. An 11900K, they're having trouble giving these away. So you're at $264.99, but you're going to need an LGA 1200 motherboard. And your selection of trying to find a socket 1200 motherboard today, it's slim pickings. And a lot of them are overpriced because you don't have any options anymore. Like they've been, the sellers can gouge you because they know there's not many other people that sell them. So, well, you might save money on the processor. You might have to buy a used motherboard. You don't know the condition. You're not going to have warranty. You see what I'm saying? And we can keep going if you want. We can go to a 10900K and we could save even more money. Buy it brand new, never used, brand new chip. $600 processor. Today, you can pick it up. This one shows $250 for the version without a GPU in it. I don't know what this person's smoking, but that ain't right. So its list price here said it was $499. It was $500. Here we go. Oh, that's the 11 again. The 10850K, this was $100. less than the 10900K, but just 100 megahertz slower, 275. But good luck finding a board. If you don't already have a socket 1200 board, the ones that I see available for sale today, I wouldn't use them. None, or the ones I would use are 2 to 3 times their original retail price. So, can you save money by waiting? It reminds me of the lyrics to a song. Good things come to those who wait, but not for those who wait too late. Truer words have never been spoken. All right, one more look-see here in the chat, and let me check the emails. Wow, very generous PayPal contribution from our friend Mark Gaines in Northern Ireland. Thank you so much, Mark. He says happy Halloween. And where's the, Mara? Yeah? Where's the email you're referring to?
It's that one.
The one that says happy Halloween, there's more to it?
I don't want to say more than that. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay, I guess well, first of all, thank you, Mark, as always. We certainly, we can't do this without the support of our viewers. And it means so much to us. You know, when folks like Minisforum entrust us to do an honest review, and they're not paying us, and they're not telling us what we're allowed or not allowed to do. We have that freedom. But to have the freedom to be able to do it to begin with comes from you guys. And we can't thank you enough for that. Andy Kane said, Mark Gaines, you always have to be mysterious. Patrick says, I think back in July, I made a smart decision going for a last-gen AMD AM5 Ryzen 7700X, as I knew Ryzen 9000 would have a lot of BIOS updates to fix things and such. Overall, very happy with it. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of these Ryzen chips. What's wrong are the expectations of those who are upset with their purchase. And I have to say, almost universally, from what I've seen online, people are mad about their expectations. And they're making videos about it, right? They're saying, this did not meet my expectations. I don't know what your expectations were. Were they reasonable? And what basis and foundation can you justify your expectations on? Well, because they used to do it this way. Okay, but they don't do it that way anymore. Well, that makes me upset. They've changed it. Oh. Typically, the people who don't have this kind of expectation are less familiar, right? We get to a point where we start having expectations based on past experiences. I had a customer that wanted to use a tape drive for backup. And I said, we don't use tape drives for backup in small business. That's a big business thing. We don't do that. But that's what we've always used. I understand that, but we don't use that anymore. But I've already got it. I've already got the tapes. I want to use it. No. First of all, it's got an IDE interface in the back of it, and motherboards don't come with that connector anymore. If you want to use that, you'll have to keep it attached to the computer. Okay, but that computer isn't able to process what we need to improve it. I go, that's the problem. When we improve that, we've got to get rid of the tape drive and put something modern in there. Well, that means I have to spend more. You don't have to. I mean, you can just leave the computer there and spend nothing. But if you want to replace it because it's not fast enough, why would you take a fast computer, even if you could plug this tape drive into it? If you could, you would slow the whole computer back down anytime the tape drive was accessed or pulled by the operating system, reducing the performance and benefit of having the upgraded computer to begin with. And sometimes the best thing to do is say, I'm sorry I can't help you and I wish you luck in your endeavor to find a solution. Rather than try and twist their arm to get them to become reasonable, they've made up their mind. And If I've established this customer has made up their mind, there's nothing in it for me other than to try and help. Okay, so if you're drowning in the ocean and you're asking me to help you and I throw you a life preserver and you say, I don't know how to use this, and I'm like, you just hold on to it, right? No, I'm not going to hold on to it. Well, I've done my part. I don't know what else I can do for you. Like at that point, whatever help you need, I cannot provide. So rather than waste any more of our time, let me just let you figure this out. Another solution. I tried to offer you one. You don't like it. That's fine. Because the last thing I want is a customer upset. And there's only one reason you're going to have an upset customer. For the most part, it's because you did not live up to their expectation. So I like to get the expectation out of the way up front. Before I agree to do any work, you understand this is about your costs, this is about your timeline, this is your warranty, this is a service level agreement, right? When you call me, I have a 4-hour window that's an industry standard to get back to you. I may not get back to you right away. If you can find somebody that gets back to you right away and they can provide you the same service for the same or less money, if I were you, I'd go with them. I wouldn't go with me. But I can tell you this is an industry standard and it's impossible for me to have multiple clients and tell them all, I'm going to be available whenever you randomly call me. But I will always return your call within 4 hours. And that's generally, in my experience, that's the industry standard in professional IT. I'm not creating a new standard, okay? Just going with what's already there and why it's there. And if that's not good enough, I'm sorry, but that's the business I run and that's how I run it. And if that doesn't align with your values, it was nice talking to you. I appreciate the opportunity and I wish you the best of luck. Trying to convince somebody that there's not enough profit in this industry for me to spend that kind of time to try and change somebody's mind. We're just not a good fit. So if you find somebody that you feel is faster, better, cheaper, man, if I were you, I'd go with that person. I'm being honest. You'll be happy, they'll be happy, and I'll be happy. I don't see any downside to that at all. So it's not a threat. If you say, well, I can get this cheaper, well, go get it cheaper. Okay. That's fine. I never claim to be the cheapest. I just claim to be the best. If you can find someone better and cheaper, man, I'd go to them too. So sometimes the expectation is unreasonable. Sometimes the expectation is, I'm the customer. What happened to the customer is always right. There was never such a thing as the customer is always right. That's not a thing. Well, I've heard the expression, people use it. It's not the whole expression. That never happened. Were you telling me that I just made that up? Kinda. There's something called Mandela effect. It's when something never happened and people insist it did. Microsoft said Windows 10 would be the last operating system. Microsoft never said that. Some clickbait journalists took something that was said by an evangelist one time and didn't finish the whole sentence. They just took this little bit. Never was said. Microsoft never ever said it, but yet everybody seems to know it's fact. Show me. Well, here's an article. Yeah, that's the clickbaity articles that were produced by the journalists to get you to click on their articles. Show me the full sentence of who said it. Research it. Cary Grant never says, Judy, Judy, Judy. He never says that ever in any movie he's ever made. But if somebody does that, you know they're doing an impression of Cary Grant. Okay, so the customer is always right is not the whole sentence. It's very frustrating, isn't it? How would you know that wasn't the whole sentence if you've never looked it up? If you took somebody saying that as being true, so you accepted it as true, and now you're teaching it to other people, you are continuing to propagate something that never was ever a thing. So let's take a look here on Google. And let's type in, I'll just type in the search customer. I mean, this is so easy to do. There's just no excuse for it. You could do this as soon as somebody says something you don't think sounds right, pull your phone out right now while it's on your mind and verify it. Customer is always right. And then you got to look for the right term here. Full quote. We want the full original quote. We want to know who said it, when they said it, and why they said it. Where did it come from? What's its origin? Just like you were in a courtroom and you were providing evidence, hearsay is not going to work. We need citations and proof. So let me share the screen with you. This is all live and unscripted. It's not like I have to look very hard. It took all of 3 seconds for me to Google that. And let's see what our results say. The full quote is, right or wrong. Well, that's not the full quote either. The customer's always right. That is not full. Sorry, this is an AI answer. That's wrong. It was coined by Harry Gordon Selfridge. That part is right. He's an American businessman who founded a London department store called Selfridge's that's still there today. But the actual quote, so AI sometimes gets it wrong. We're still early. So let's go to the first non-AI answer. The full quote. Here's the actual thing Harry Selfridge said. The customer is always right in matters of taste. It's important we mention the rest of the sentence, or we're misunderstanding why he said it. The reason the quote exists is in the early 1900s in Britain, customers weren't allowed to touch things and feel things. You had to ask somebody behind the counter, can I try these gloves on? And they'd have to go get them for you and supervise you wearing them. And for the most part, it really wasn't a try-on. You want them or you don't. And in that way, there were no restrooms. Women did not shop alone. Do you understand? It was a different world. And so what Harry Selfridge said is, if somebody wants to buy an outfit, that's terrible. Let them buy it. It doesn't matter in taste. If they like purple and black and you like red and blue, don't not sell it to them, because that's what they used to do. They used to say, that doesn't look good on you, I'm not going to sell it. That's what it was like to be a customer in London and maybe other places. But in the case of Harry Selfridge, he created a store that was unlike any other store at the time in London that invited women to shop alone without a male chaperone, to allow that to be safe, to have restrooms for women to use, and to be able to touch and feel and try on anything without having to ask somebody to get it for you. It was groundbreaking. And when you walk into a department store and the first thing you hit is the makeup and cologne and perfume, that was Harry Selfridge who did that. Said, put all of the colognes and perfumes, put that all right up front as soon as they walk in the door. And that is a standard in department stores today, like Macy's and Nordstrom. They all do that. Well, this is the guy who started it. And this guy is saying, don't not sell a customer something because you don't agree in the customer's taste. When it comes to a customer's taste, the customer is always right. You understand? It's not just a blanket, the customer can be belligerent and you have to tolerate it. He never said that. But that's what it sort of became. And so when I run into a customer that wants to use that as their excuse for being belligerent, I can tell you what to do. No, you can't. No money has exchanged hands. No service has begun. I'm trying to evaluate and assess what it is you're looking for, if I can provide it, what price it will cost you, that you're okay with that, when I can get started and when the project will end. If we can align on that and it's a reciprocal, good for me, good for you, we got business. But if it's all about you and it's nothing about me and I'm somehow your slave, I don't even know you. You might be able to find that from somebody else, but you're not going to get it from me. So there's customers and there's good customers. I can replace customers all day long. Replacing good customers is very difficult. So I will go out of my way when a customer has established themselves as a good customer. I'll do whatever I can to keep them. But if somebody's just trying to squeeze me for everything I will allow them to get, as soon as I recognize that, we're done. Right? Now you have to pay me more if you want that. And they go, well, I'm not going to pay you more for that. Well, then good. Because I'm not going to do it at that price. I'm going to go out of business. They don't care if I go out of business. I want that computer at half of what you paid for it. I'm sure you do. So would I. What's your point? That's not a good customer. So that's some of the problems you have in business, is you have customers that are not informed and they have unrealistic expectations. To avoid that from happening, you've got to make sure you get those expectations hammered before you do any work, or you're setting yourself up for failure and it's your fault, not the customer's fault. So when somebody thinks that this new chip is automatically supposed to be better, because every new chip is always better, how are we defining better? They're very narrow with that definition. My frames per second in my video game should be better. Okay, but what about the rest of us? Well, I don't care about the rest of you. Now we're getting somewhere. Trevor Dunn said, Kirk never said, beam me up, Scotty. I believe that's true. Yeah, I don't think he ever said it. That's another Mandela effect thing where everybody knows it, but nobody can actually show you a clip where that actually ever happened. It's an accepted truth with no evidence or proof. I don't know. It's very strange. It's strange to me anyway. So I think if you bought a chip last year and you're happy with your purchase, regardless if it's Intel or AMD, I mean, that's the best we can hope for, right? We don't want you to be upset with a chip you bought as being regretful. I'm certainly regretful at the headaches and the challenges that I faced with the 13900K and the 14900K and my struggle to figure out why they weren't cooling. You saw that struggle live on camera. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money on something I could have never fixed. That was all BIOS related. Like, I suppose I could go into the BIOS and make all those adjustments, but I was nowhere close. Like, the way I was fixing it was based on previous experience on why this happens. But there was no precedent. It's never happened before, ever in the history of computers. It was unprecedented. And so going about ways the same way you've gone about it before may not apply in a new situation. So having the same expectations as you had before may not apply with something new. Unless you have evidence where an official source of the company made a promise that they didn't keep, in which case, let's hold them to that. Let's draw public shame from that. This company said that they were going to do this and that, and they didn't do it. And here's the evidence. Here's where they said it. And, you know, Intel Optane was all about how great it was. Intel's RAM bus, you know. And Apple's had their failures too. Microsoft's Zune. What about all the people that bought those? What about the investments they made and how they threw their money away? They were lied to. The company didn't live up to their own expectations, and anybody who bought the product. Spotify's little car player, what a fiasco that was. 23andMe, not keeping your data safe. Like, I told you that years ago. I said I wouldn't use a company like 23andMe because they're going to have all your genetic information. It's just a matter of time before someone steals it. And there it went. That wasn't difficult to predict. So I can't fix it, but I can also refuse to participate in it. You understand? You guys all want to jump off that bridge. I'll be over here. Okay? I'm not going to tell you not to. I'd suggest against it, but you're an adult. It's freedom, I guess. That's what you want to do. I don't want to be any part of it. And that's where you're going to find my stance on things I don't agree on. I just refuse to participate. I can't really stop the momentum. I can make you aware of it. I can tell you why I won't participate in it. And you might disagree with me, and that's fine with me too. So anyway, I guess that'll wrap it up for today. Chris says people expect large uplifts every generation. There are never large uplifts. Never, never. You get about a 10 to 17% improvement from generation to generation. It's been that way for years. And it averages out to about, we don't really see like giant uplift from one generation to the next. And that's why I've always advised, if you have a computer that's, no less than 4 years old, you won't see much benefit in upgrading it. If you went from, what's 4 generations ago, an 11900K to an Ultra whatever, an equivalent 4 years later, you may see maybe a little improvement, but mostly not going to be. That's going to be your baseline. If you go from an 11900 to a 12900, you probably won't notice it. If you go from 12900 to a 13900 or 1400, it's such a minor little upgrade that unless you're the most demanding of users that notices every single frame. And here's the other thing, and I want to point this out because I think this is important, and then we're going to wrap it up because I forgot I wanted to talk about this today. But I want to go back over to Amazon, and I want to show you something that AMD and Intel are both guilty of doing. Let's get back over to Amazon, and let's take a look. We know, for example, the Intel Ultra 9, the 285K, that's their flagship processor, has a price, well, Amazon doesn't even pull it up. I'm gonna have to go somewhere else. Let's go to Newegg, and let's look up the Ultra 9 Intel chip, 285K. It's all sold out. Somebody's got to have a price. I'll tell you what, let's just do this. Let me go back over to Amazon again. Let's go back to the Ultra 7 for a minute, the Intel Ultra 7. And I also want you to consider the Ryzen 9 9900X. You can see this is a $400 CPU, right? And the Ultra 9, the flagship, is over $600, so it's $200 more. So $400 plus $200 is a nearly 50% price increase. So the Ultra 9 processor is 50% better? No, it's maybe 17% better. If I brought you a plate of food, right, and the same with the 9900X, if we go to the 9900X, you're looking at a $400 processor, about the same price. But if you want to go to the one above this, which is the, 9950? Is it a 9950? Trying to remember the model number. $600. It's a $200 price differential. But are you getting, at a 50% higher price, are you getting 50% more processor? More frequency? No. More threads? A little bit. But percentage-wise, let me put this to you another way, because I can't wrap my head around this. If I serve you a plate of food, let's say this is a plate of food, and this plate of food is $10. Good deal. Okay. Would you like me to add 15% more food to your plate to pay me $15? This whole plate is 10, but I'll give you a little bit more for 15. Wouldn't you say, why don't I buy 2 plates of 10 and get twice as much food for twice as much money? Why would I spend more money to get less, percentage-wise, ounces of food per dollar? Why would I spend more per ounce when I could just buy 2? I mean, it's common sense, isn't it? So why would you spend $600, right? 16 core, 32 threads, 4.3 gigahertz versus 412 It's a little faster at 4.4, 4 processors lower, right? 12 instead of 16. Will you even notice that? Would you be better off buying 2 of these and get twice the performance than spend the price differential between the 2 and go 15, 20% faster? I don't understand. Why is the Ultra 9 sold out? Are people that bad at math, or am I missing something? Because clearly the Ultra 7 is the best bang for the buck, and the Ultra 9 is the biggest ripoff. And here, the 9900X is the best bang for the buck, and the 9950X is a ripoff by comparison. Why would anybody buy this? Can anybody explain this to me? Why? Look how close these processors are in specification, but look how far apart they are in price. I'm looking for a reason why anybody in their right mind would do that. Let me look in the chat and see if any of you have an answer, because this keeps me up at night. I don't understand what incentivizes someone to spend more than they have to get less. What's going on? What am I missing? If I'm a content creator and I want to draw a lot of attention to my channel, the more extreme it is, the more likely I'll get more views. So I'm going to get more views with a Threadripper view. There's Threadripper processors, by the way. Let me go back here and show you. If we go back to Amazon, we can buy a CPU for $10,000. Not the motherboard, not the RAM, not the case, not the power supply, and not the storage, not the cooler, just the Threadripper chip. Let's do a search on Amazon for Threadripper. Okay. And forget the pre-builts. Let's go right to the chip itself, and let's see what our choices are. Here we have Threadripper Pro 5955WX, 16-core, 32-thread. That's $1,090. Why would you want that over, say, by comparison, that 9950 has the same core count, and it's almost half the price. But look at this one. Here's a Threadripper Pro 7965, only 24 cores, by the way. It's a 40, oh, sorry, I want to go to the next one. Where did it go? Right here. AMD Threadripper Pro 7995X. Okay, this is a 96 core CPU with 192 threads. All right, no cooler, just a chip. That's all you're getting. And then there's about 10% sales tax, which is going to add another $1,000 onto this price in sales tax. Not quite, maybe about $850 in sales tax on this. So you're out the door, at least in Phoenix, for a little under $11,000 when it's all said and done. And you're still going to have to buy a motherboard, RAM, cooler, case, power supply. So, certainly not for the speed. I mean, the Intel and AMD offerings are faster than this. I mean, 320 megs of cache is insane. 8 channels of RAM, 8 sockets. No, that would be 16 sockets. If a channel is, if it's 2 sockets equals 1 channel, then that's going to hold 16 RAM modules. It'll support a motherboard that has up to that. DDR5, it's got to be RDIMM memory, which is more expensive, and you can have 2 terabytes of storage, of RAM, I mean. 2 terabytes of RAM. Wow. Cooler not included. How many can I get for you? How many would you like? Let's go. Let's take some orders now. Would you like 3, 4, baker's dozen? Clearly, there is industry that needs this chip. Not any consumers. Industry. That's where it's at. That's what's providing you all the services we enjoy every day in life. The websites you visit. What do you think is powering all of that? So stuff like this is consumer stuff. This is fine. It's hobbyist stuff. But to be disappointed that you didn't get your 7%, or whatever from one generation, it's like, do you not know all of this exists for a price and is way more than you would probably ever use in your life? But corporations need this stuff. In fact, they need better than that. That's why they keep coming out with higher and higher editions and raising that core count, and it gets expensive. What I find most interesting is when it gets to be the fanboy, AMD or Intel. I like them both. I just like the Intel boards better, the motherboards. The chips themselves, they're fine. But when it comes to the specific 9900X and the Ultra 7, and I haven't tested the Ultra 7 or the 9900X, but from what I'm reading about it, the universal consensus seems to be they're nearly identical in every way, including price, warranty, limitations. They are nearly identical, and where one may be more preferential than the other will be on how the individual uses it. I have never seen the line that blurred between Intel and AMD before. And I think if I got an Ultra 7 and I put together a 9900X and I compared them side by side, even you as a viewer would be hard pressed to tell them apart via performance, energy efficiency, price, warranty, motherboard cost, RAM cost, storage cost. They just right down the line, almost exactly identical, with some benefits on one side for certain use case and some benefits on the other side for other use case. How do you pick? Peter says his Xeon chips were already 1,400 euros each. For sure. Anyway, I want you to know more exists outside of the enthusiast platform, but you wouldn't know that from watching most tech-related YouTube videos. There are some, but they certainly don't make up the majority. Most of these videos that are created, even by the bigger the channel, are by the enthusiasts and for the enthusiast. And if you're an enthusiast, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a world that exists around you, and all you have to do is turn your head and look, and you'll see there's other reasons why people need computers. And what the enthusiast is turning their nose up at may be a fantastic chip for what you need it for. So it's important that you gather the right data so you can make the right decision that's right for you. That's all I'm trying to say. Don't ask me what chip is right for you. I don't know you. You have to tell me, this is my budget and this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to use it. And then that's a starting point. But really, there's so many other questions regarding cooling, case size. There's so much more to it than that. This can be a 90-minute conversation that at the end of the day, you don't need my help with that, right? You just need the data. You go, okay, this is what I need it for. This is what this has, and this is what this costs. This is what the competition has. These are the pros and the cons from my perspective. And if you ask me my pros and cons, they'll be from it. We're not going to align on that because I don't use it the same way you do. Not likely. I don't have the same budget you have. I probably don't have the same expectations you have. And in that way, if you say, what should I buy? And I tell you, and you're not happy with it, you're going to blame me. You gave me bad advice. Okay, well, I don't want to give you any advice if you're not paying me for it. If you're going to blame me for it, if I'm taking the accountability for it, there's got to be something in it for me. Otherwise, I suggest look up the information to your specific preferences and make the decision that's right for you. But make no mistake, that doesn't mean your decision is right for literally anyone else on the planet. Don't assume that I've already done the research so you don't have to. No. Because when you give that advice, and you're just so giving, I'm just giving this out, you will be seen as an evil demon by somebody who was disappointed by the end results of your advice, and they're going to blame you for it. You're going to say, all I did was help. You're like, you didn't help. You made it worse. And you're going to say, well, I didn't make any money from it. And they go, yeah, well, I spent my hard-earned money because of it. You see how this all can go sideways? And that's why when there's accountability and responsibility, there's got to be an exchange. There's got to be something in it for each person for benefit and risk. And in business, this is constantly calculated. But in the enthusiast world, it's here, take this, you can have it for free. It's my advice. But you'll quite often find, in my experience, unless you're playing the same games they're playing and you have the same issues they have or the same expectations they have, your expectations and their expectations likely aren't the same. The difference is you're going to blame them for your decision when it's been your decision the whole time, and your decision to let somebody else make your decision was still your decision. Okay. All right, that's going to wrap it up. A long show today, but we didn't have a show Tuesday or Wednesday. Some things were going on here I had to take care of. Had some company from out of town, and anyway, it didn't hurt for me to have a couple days off. We are live tomorrow, as we always are every Friday. For those of you where perhaps Halloween has already started, have a safe, hopefully joyous Halloween. And if you have questions that I have missed, be sure and leave them in the comments about the Minisforum PC. Again, a shout out and a thank you to our friends at Minisforum, our friends at RoboForum, Acronis, and of course, SCD Keys. All the links and discounts are there in the video notes, as they always are. To all of our members, we thank you so much, because without you, well, there wouldn't be a video to watch. And for those of you just kind members of the public participating with proper thoughtfulness and kindness, we appreciate you as well, just as much, because the community isn't about how much money you have. It's about how kind, how thoughtful you are. And as long as you're kind and thoughtful, no matter anything else, gender, age, religion, political side, I don't care. Just be nice. As long as you're nice, you're welcome. You're always welcome here. And we thank you for joining us today. Thanks, of course, to Mara, who's working feverishly in the background, dealing with all the paperwork that goes on doing the show. And with regards to tomorrow's show, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we always go live. When I was moving from Studio B to Studio C, I forgot that I had a couple of spare Intel 13500 processors brand new in a box. But I didn't have any motherboards. And I said, I have to order motherboards. And then I had to do the move. And I completely forgot about them. And as I'm unboxing and putting things away, what's this brand new CPU? I got two of them. Oh, now I remember. I was gonna... These are such a good value. The 13500 with an ASRock, what were we using? The B760 Pro RSD4, something that's DDR4, so the RAM is cheaper. These things are a bargain all day long. Stock cooler works just fine, no issues. So I bought a couple of them while I still could and forgot to buy the motherboards. The good news is the motherboards arrived yesterday. So even though you've seen me build this particular combination before, maybe some of you haven't. There's obviously going to be a BIOS update on these boards. I already know that going into it. The 13500 and the boards are all available for sale at a very good price. And the performance differential on this between a 13900, 14900, or even Ultra 9, very minimal, in my opinion. When you talk about value for the money, the 13500 still has it where it counts. It's not over the top, and it's not so budget that you're going to need to replace it anytime soon. You get that reliability. It's an 8-year build. And in all fairness, when I'm doing the Ultra 7, I really should put together a 9900X, because I do believe in every way they're equal. So with the exception of, the Ryzen 9900X does perform some tasks better, but it also does some tasks worse. The same is true, of course, for the Intel. So I feel like it would be incomplete to just do the Intel one. At the same time, I don't need a 9900X. I also don't need an Ultra 7. And the budget for that is, you know, a motherboard, a processor, a RAM, storage, case, power supply. You're probably looking around $800 or change for each build. But I do believe this is important content, and I'm still weighing whether or not I want to do the 9900X. It just means I have to spend money to make the content, and then when I'm done with it, it's not going to a customer. It's just going to sit here, not because anything's wrong with it. I think you could go either way, Ultra 7 or Ryzen 9 9900X, spend the same amount of money and basically get the same thing. And I think it'd be interesting to put that on camera. I'm still debating. The 9900X was $40 more yesterday. Just to say, you know, the price went down 40 on Amazon. It went down $35 or $40 overnight. So anyway, food for thought. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, of course, to our friends Buster and Mark Gaines and Rob Foster and Oystein, and of course our friend Luke Greenia and Frankie B, our friend Paul Gray in Australia, our friend, I hate it when I do this, all of Charlie Purdy, all of our friends that contribute so much to help make these videos happen. We just can't thank you enough. And for being a part of the community and being just a kind person, our deepest gratitude for making this a great place to be. We'll see you all tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Until then, bye for now.